Chapter 870. The exact same prescription. What's wrong, Master Bing? You think this plan is feasible too? Dazhou was overjoyed. He didn't expect his plan to be approved by Master Bing. It's doable, very doable. Qibing nodded and looked at Sihua. Sihua, what do you think? It's doable. Sihua nodded in agreement. Whatever information you need, I'll provide it to you. Thank you so much, Sihua bro. Dazhou quickly thanked him. I'll go contact that master first. Wait. Yao spoke again. Yao, is there anything else? Dazhou paused, but since it was Yao who spoke, he didn't dare to be slow. He quickly stopped and turned back. Your illness today reminded me that although your son seems to be fine now, it's hard to say if Lin Yi has done anything else. You have to be careful. If anything goes wrong when you go back, don't be careless. Yao started to give Dazhou a heads up. What? There's more? Dazhou was furious. Isn't this Lin Yi too wicked? There's more. It's just a guess, I can't be sure. After all, I only thought of it after what happened today, Yao sighed. Then Yao, can you check Jun again? Dazhou asked carefully. I can't find anything right now. How can I check when there's no illness? I can't check every part of your son's body, can I? If I do that, my pure energy will run out and I'll die. Yao waved his hand and rejected Dazhou's suggestion. I see. Dazhou couldn't force it after hearing Yao's words, but his heart felt like it was blocked. He was very unhappy, and his hatred for Lin Yi increased by another level. But don't worry, there's no illness that Yao can't cure. If there's any problem, come find me. Yao comforted. That's the only way. Zhen Dazhou had no choice but to leave with his son. After Zhen Dazhou and his son left, Zhao Qibing sighed. What two idiots, I really hope they get lucky and kill Lin Yi again. Let them do whatever they want. We just need to focus on earning our own money. Sihua said. Master Bing, now that we have 40 million in our account, shouldn't we start building the orphanage? Okay. Get ready. Take the king pharmacist to the orphanage and warn them. Tell them to move away, or I'll kill them. Qibing said arrogantly. Now that he had a guaranteed way to earn money, he was much more domineering. Master Bing, but I'm not good at fighting, right? Yao's listless expression changed to one of high spirits. Don't worry, you just need to show the strength of a mystic class master. I don't think that the dean, a golden class master, would dare to fight a mystic class master like you directly. Qibing said nonchalantly. You're not going to fight her, you're going to scare her. Don't worry, as long as she's not an idiot, she won't fight you. Okay. Yao relaxed. Master Bing, I'll go take a shower first. I almost died from the heat, I'm sweating all over. 30 million isn't easy to earn. Huh. Zhao Qibing heard Yao's words and smiled happily. Yao, don't worry. No matter what, you're the main contributor, I'll remember it. Thank you, Master Bing. Yao quickly cupped his hands in thanks. There was a Zhao Yao in Songshan, and his miraculous hands were comparable to Hua Tuo's. The news spread from the Zhen father and son, and with Zihua's purposely spreading rumors, Zhao Yao's name quickly spread through the upper class of Songshan, and even many outsiders knew about him. However, because of Zhao Yao's high fees, other than Zhening Jun, who couldn't be cured by others, no one else was willing to spend so much money. So even though Zhao Yao was famous, there weren't any patients. Kong Mingming got the Yaowang formula for Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine from Kong Xiaobo, and he was overjoyed. He didn't think that he'd get the formula so easily. If he'd known, he wouldn't have gone after Guan Exine. However, Kong Xiaobo's power was limited. It was easy to get the formula for the injury medicine, but it wouldn't be so easy to get the formula for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. Kong Xiaobo's access was limited after all. It seemed like he had to start from Guan Xuemin's side. Of course, this was a matter for the future. At least he had something to report now. Kong Mingming happily returned to House Kong with the formula for Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine. Dr. Kong was quite satisfied with Kong Mingming's achievements. After all, the formula for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing couldn't be rushed, and Kong Mingming getting the formula for Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine back was a great achievement. As expected, this formula is exactly the same as our House Kang's formula. Dr. Kong held the formula from Kong Mingming and was furious. It must be that bastard Kong Xiaobo who offered this formula to Guan Xiumin in exchange for the position of vice president. Greedy bastard, ruining House Kang's plans. Of course, Dr. Kong didn't doubt the authenticity of the formula. After all, the formula was in Dr. Kang's hands. Even Kong Guifeng and Kong Tsuepu didn't know about it, let alone Kong Mingming. The only one who knew the formula was Kong Xiaolong, and Xiaolong wouldn't leak it out. He'd already decided that Xiaolong would be the future head of House Kong. Why would he betray his own interests? So this recipe had to be Xiaobo's handiwork. Yeah, he sold it to me for 300,000, so naturally he'd give it to Guan Xiumin for the position of vice president. Kong Mingming nodded in agreement. If that's the case, then don't blame me for being rude. Dr. Kong smiled coldly. Yes, Grandpa, we can't let them have it easy, Kong Mingming said. Chapter 871. Showering with them? So that's how it is. I was thinking that after their products hit the market, we could just buy a few boxes and slowly test them. Why would we need to spend so much money on a prescription? So it turns out that we want to give them a blow when their products hit the market. Kong Mingming nodded in realization. Xiaolong didn't explain it too clearly to him on the phone, and Kong Ming didn't really know what the recipe was for. And, Xiaolong, you go prepare for this, and make sure that Miracle Dr. Guan's company's reputation is ruined. Dr. Kong said to Xiaolong. Come up with a plan and show it to me. Yes, Grandpa. Xiaolong nodded and agreed. Scheming was his forte, and he had to make sure that Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company's reputation hit rock bottom. Not only would it affect his impression in front of Miracle Dr. Kong, but it was also because House Kong would be Xiaolong's House Kong in the future. He had to kill Guan Xiumin in the cradle. He couldn't let them take away his market share and position. Right, Grandpa, Guan Xian's already engaged. What should we do about this? Our previous plan won't work. She's engaged. How could she still be friends with me? Kong Mingming blamed his failure on Guan Xian's engagement, but House Kong didn't know the specifics, and they didn't doubt Kong Mingming's ability to pick up girls. That's our mistake. We didn't think that Guan Xian was already engaged, and now the recipe for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing is going to be difficult. Dr. Kong frowned after hearing Kong Mingming's words. He knew that a girl like Guan Xian wouldn't be too intimate with another man after she was engaged, so their plan to steal the recipe was obviously not going to work. But Dr. Kong didn't want to give it up just like that. After all, this prescription could be the stepping stone for the Kong family to successfully become an aristocratic family. It could allow the Kong family's strength to rise to a higher level and reach a higher position. Yes, I didn't do my research properly and acted rashly. Thank goodness I didn't alert them, or it'd be even more troublesome. Kong Mingming wasn't stupid. He was afraid that his grandpa would blame him, so he admitted his mistake quickly. I've disappointed everyone. Grandpa, you can't blame Xiaoming for this. Xiaolong had to show his generosity as the leader of the third generation. Although it was true that Xiaoming didn't investigate the matter thoroughly, who would have thought that Guan Xian had an engagement? Xiaolong said. This isn't something that can be stopped with mere human strength. Xiaolong's right. Xiaolong is right. You don't need to belittle yourself, Xiaoming. You've already done very well. As for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, we'll think of something else. Dr. Kong said. Don't worry, Grandpa. I'll head back to Songshan if there's nothing else. I'll keep trying to find out more, but I'll have to rely on my family's support for the expenses. Kong Mingming was living a carefree life in Songshan, and he didn't have any supervision from his family. That's not a problem. I'll give you another 1 million for the expenses. Let me know if it's not enough. As long as we can get the recipe for the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, it'll be worth it no matter how much money we spend. Miracle Dr. Kong said. Right, you'll have to work harder on the sourcing channel. If we get a hold of Xiumin's raw material sourcing channel, we'll seal it off completely. I'd like to see what they'll be able to sell in the future. What's the use of a recipe? Okay, I got it. Kong Xiaoming nodded and replied. Linny sat on the sofa, watching Pleasant Goat and Big Wolf, with the Miss and Yushu. He didn't understand why the Miss and Yushu would like to watch kids' stuff at their age. But then again, It was understandable that they were a little childish since they'd been living together all day, not interacting much with the outside world. The night was boring, especially with Yushu and Mingyao watching TV. Linny didn't have anything to do, so he picked up the phone on the table and started playing games. He'd volunteered to watch TV with them just now, and it'd be a little embarrassing if he were to leave halfway through. Wouldn't that be a little too much of a disgrace? The miss seemed to be someone who cared a lot about face. I'm going to shower. Linny wasn't interested in it at all, and when the show was finally over, he tossed his phone on the coffee table and stood up, preparing to take a shower in his room. I'm going to shower too, Mingyao stretched her body. What about you? Oh, I haven't finished my apple yet. I'll watch TV for a while. Yaorao sis, you go shower first. Yushu used the remote control to change the channel, her mouth stuffed with half an apple as she mumbled. Mingyao turned around and went upstairs. General Weiwu saw that the people in the living room had left, so it wagged its tail and went back to its place under the stairs. Not long after Lin Yi and Mingyao left, Lin Yi's phone rang, scaring Yushu. She picked it up and saw the name Tang Yin. She hesitated before picking it up. Hello. Hello. Tang Yin froze. Why was it a girl's voice? She subconsciously thought that she'd called the wrong number, but when she saw that it was indeed Lin Yi's name, she couldn't help but feel strange. You are? Isn't this Lin Yi's number? Yes, I'm Shu, the automated voice answering machine. What can I do for you? You can leave me a message, or I'll pass it on to Shield Bro, Yushu said. Hashtag Tang Yin heard Yushu's voice and was speechless. Shu? Where's Lin Yi? Oh, Shield Bro and Yaoyao sis are showering right now. Why are you looking for him? Yushu smiled mischievously. Shower? Lin Yi and Mingyao. Tang Yin heard Yushu's words and was taken aback. Why did Lin Yi and Mingyao go to shower? Yeah, Yushu said. Together? Tang Yin didn't believe Yushu's words. This girl always talked nonsense. Who knew if she was telling the truth or not? Tang Yin's vigilance was high now, and normal people couldn't lie to her. Yeah, Yushu replied. Then why don't you go with him? Aren't you Lin Yi's mistress? Tang Yin asked. Chapter 872. Can you see through things? Tang Yin frowned. If Yushu had said that she had just finished showering or was about to shower, then Tang Yin wouldn't have believed her. But Yushu's explanation made Tang Yin a little uneasy. All right, I won't talk to you anymore. I've said too much. If Yaorao sis finds out, I'll die a horrible death, bye-bye. Yushu didn't wait for Tang Yin to reply and hung up the phone. Then she started laughing. Tang Yin didn't get to ask what was going on before Yushu hung up. It made her feel a little uncomfortable. Lin Yi really went to shower with Mingyao? Tang Yin had always felt that the relationship between Lin Yi, Mingyao, and Yushu wasn't as simple as an employer and employee relationship. Perhaps nothing had happened now, but if this went on, something would happen sooner or later. But Tang Yin didn't want to think about it. She even thought optimistically that if Lin Yi really did have something going on with Mingyao, it'd be fine as long as she didn't know about it. She didn't know what was going through her mind. Was it because she felt inferior, or was it because she was afraid of losing Lin Yi? Xiao Xiao's words were a lie, but it was a wake-up call for Tang Yin. Love didn't need a reason, and there was no such thing as being rich or poor. But there was always a difference between ideals and reality. Honestly speaking, Tang Yin herself felt that Mingyao or Guan Xian might be a better match for Lin Yi, and she, on the other hand, had gotten together with Lin Yi by accident. She couldn't help Lin Yi at all. No matter what he did, she'd always be a bystander, and she'd even drag him down with her. Once this feeling formed, it would take root and grow, making Tang Yin worry more and more. She didn't want to ask Lin Yi anything, and she didn't dare to. Yushu's words were 80% fake, but sometimes, knowing that it was fake still made her worried. Tang Yin picked up her phone and hesitated for a long while before dialing a number in the contact book. Do. After the call connected, it rang many times but no one answered. Tang Yin silently pressed the hang-up button and put the phone aside. She fell onto the bed, hugging the pillow in her arms as she stared at the wall in a daze. After a while, Tang Yin's phone beeped. It was a text notification. Tang Yin was spacing out when she received a text. She looked at her phone and saw that it was a text from Mingyao. I was taking a shower just now. What's the matter? Tang Yin was shocked. Was Meng Yao really taking a shower? Tang Yin felt as if her heart had been broken into pieces at this moment. It hurt a little. But then she thought about it. If Meng Yao really was showering with Lin Yi, then why would she tell her? How good would it be to hide it from him? But Tang Yin couldn't see Meng Yao's expression, so she didn't know if this message was a show of force. The tone of the message was calm, and she couldn't see any emotions in it. This was the Miss style. Tang Yin wanted to make a call to confirm, but she didn't dare. She was afraid that her guess would become reality if she called. But she couldn't be at ease if she didn't call. After a long time of hesitation, Tang Yin sighed and put the phone aside. She buried her head in the blanket, tears falling down her cheeks. Meng Yao sent a text to Tang Yin, but Tang Yin didn't reply for a long time. She found it strange, so she called Tang Yin back. After all, the three of them had a good relationship. Meng Yao shook her head when she heard the sound of the phone being turned off. Maybe Tang Yin's phone was out of battery, or maybe she called the wrong number. She didn't think too much about it, so she put the phone aside and dried her hair with a towel. It was a quiet night, and Linny realized that he left his phone in the living room the next morning. He looked at his phone and saw no missed calls, so he didn't think too much about it, and went to prepare breakfast for the Miss and Yushu. Faubert came to pick up the Miss and Yushu, and Linny drove Yushu's beetle to the hospital to pick up Tang Yin. Tang Yin stood at the entrance of the hospital, feeling nervous. She didn't know if Lin Yi would come to pick her up like usual, and she didn't know if she would ask Lin Yi about what happened yesterday. So she didn't even eat breakfast, and spent the whole morning in anxiety. But the moment Tang Yin saw Lin Yi, all the unhappiness disappeared. Seeing the smile on Lin Yi's face, Tang Yin smiled as well. He still loved her, so why didn't she believe him? Why did she have to worry about something that could happen, but was bound to happen? Tang Yin shook her head and quickly ran to Lin Yi with her bag. Why are your eyes red? Didn't you sleep well last night? Lin Yi opened the car door for Tang Yin and looked at her strangely. Lin Yi was a part-time doctor, and he was good at observing people. I hit a mosquito in the middle of the night. Tang Yin lied. She couldn't tell Lin Yi that she cried until midnight, could she? That would be too embarrassing. Although Lin Yi thought that Tang Yin was lying to him, Lin Yi didn't want to get to the bottom of it if Tang Yin didn't want to tell him. What do you want to eat? Tang Yin heard Lin Yi's question, and she couldn't help but be surprised. What do you want to eat? Breakfast you don't want to eat? Lin Yi smiled. I already ate. Tang Yin wanted to say that she already ate, but looked at Lin Yi's half-smiling eyes and looked down. How do you know that I didn't eat breakfast? Since Lin Yi said that, naturally he had his reasons, so Tang Yin didn't deny it. Usually, Lin Yi wouldn't ask her this question, and after picking her up he would go straight to school. I'm a doctor, I can see through your body, Lin Yi said. You can see through things? Tang Yin looked at Lin Yi's eyes and blushed. That's not true. Lin Yi shook his head. I'm just giving an example. You didn't eat anything, and I can see it from your complexion. This is the look, listen, question, and feel of traditional Chinese medicine. It's the look, listen, ask, and feel. Oh! Tang Yin thought that Lin Yi could see through things, and she was shocked. Although she would show it to him sooner or later, it would feel weird if someone could see through things. Let's go eat something first. Lin Yi started the car, and started looking for a breakfast stall on the street. I don't think so. We'll be late for school. Tang Yin was worried. Chapter 873. No one answered. Tang Yin was speechless, but a question came to her mind. Right, Mr. Wang. Why does he look like he's scared of you? This was something Tang Yin couldn't understand. She used to think that Lin Yi was some rich young master, and that Jifeng didn't dare offend him. But now that Lin Yi's identity was revealed, he was just Ming Yao's bodyguard. Why would Wang Jifeng be scared of him? He wouldn't even give face to the nephew of the school board, Zhong Pingliang, right? I caught him hitting on a girl in school. Lin Yi didn't hide it. Tang Yin's eyes went wide. Hitting on a girl? Him? In school? I think it was his lover? One of the teachers in school. Lin Yi shrugged. I just happened to see it, and he felt guilty. I see. Tang Yin didn't know what to say. It was because of this that Wang Jifeng dared to hit on her in school. She wondered if she should thank Wang Jifeng for that. If Linny hadn't caught him, Linny wouldn't have dared to do that. Let's go eat first. Linny stopped the car in front of a breakfast shop and pulled Tang Yin out of the car. Yao Yao, the school ran out of red ink. Should we buy another bottle? Yushu asked Ming Yao as if she had thought of something all of a sudden. Oh, let's get one then. Ming Yao nodded before turning to Faubert. Faubert, there's a culture store nearby. Please stop the car. We want to buy a bottle of red ink. Okay, Miss Chu. Faubert nodded. There were a lot of exams in grade 12. There was a big exam every 3 days and a small exam every 2 days. However, most of the exams were graded by the students. This was because the teachers didn't have much free time to grade the papers. So they messed up the papers and distributed them to the students. The teachers explained the answers to each question. Ming Yao's papers had been graded by Linny before, but the two weren't that close back then. Red ink was a necessity in 12th grade. And since Yushu said they were out of red ink, Ming Yao naturally had to buy another. Faubert parked the car in front of a culture store, and Ming Yao and Yushu went to buy the red ink. Faubert was about to start the car when 2 black Land Rovers blocked Faubert's Bentley, stopping him from moving. Faubert was startled, and his guard went up. The 2 Land Rovers were obviously doing this on purpose. Otherwise they wouldn't have stopped like this. Miss Chu, be careful, contact Mr. Lin. Years of experience told Faubert that there was a hint of danger. As expected, the doors of the 2 Land Rovers opened in an instant, and a tall man in white came out of the Land Rover in front, while 2 men in black came out of the Land Rover behind. Each of them had their right hand on their belt, and after getting out of the car, they stood on the left and right sides of the Bentley. Uncle Fu locked the carriage door and took a deep breath. The 2 black-clothed men in the back were nothing to be afraid of, but the white-clothed man in the front made Uncle Fu feel an unprecedented pressure. However, the man in white didn't seem to care about the locked car door at all. He reached for the door and with a bang, the door was pulled down by the man in white. One had to know that the doors of a Bentley were extraordinarily sturdy, especially Peng Zhan's car, which was made to be bulletproof. Who would have thought that the man in white would be able to destroy it so easily? Faubert's expression froze. As expected, the man in white didn't come with good intentions, and he must be a practitioner, at least above the middle phase of the golden class. The door was pulled down by the man in white, and naturally Faubert couldn't sit in the car anymore. For a master like him, doing so was equivalent to waiting for death. This man was a huge threat to him, and he couldn't protect Ming Yao even if he wanted to. Faubert had no choice but to get out of the car, hoping that he could buy some time for Ming Yao and Yushu to call Lin Yi. However, since the front door was opened by the man in white, the 2 men in black easily unlocked the door from the front and opened the back door directly. They took out 2 black guns from their waists, one for each of them, and pointed them at Ming Yao and Yushu. Hand over the phone. The man in black glared at Ming Yao and Yushu coldly. Okay. Yushu handed over the phone obediently. She knew that she shouldn't fight when the odds were against her, and she didn't say anything, knowing that these 2 were not joking around. Ming Yao was about to call Lin Yi, but it seemed like she couldn't do it anymore. She handed the phone to the man in black helplessly, but she dialed Lin Yi's number and didn't hang up. The man in black took Ming Yao's phone, looked at it and quickly hung up. He turned off the phone and looked at Ming Yao coldly. Don't think you're so smart. Get out of the car, and get into the car at the back. Lin Yi was having breakfast with Tang Yun when he received Ming Yao's call. The Mrs. phone rang twice, and before Lin Yi could pick it up, the other side hung up. This surprised Lin Yi, and he called back, only to hear that the phone was turned off. Was there no electricity? Lin Yi didn't think much about it. After all, Ming Yao was sent to school by Faubert every day. Lin Yi didn't have to worry about it. What's wrong? Tang Yun asked when she saw that Lin Yi didn't get through. It's nothing. The miss just called, and hung up after a couple of rings. I called back, but her phone was turned off. Lin Yi shrugged. Maybe it's out of battery. Oh, Tang Yun pouted when she heard that it was the miss, and she didn't say anything else. She was a little disappointed. What's wrong? Lin Yi saw that Tang Yun seemed to be depressed, so he asked. It's nothing. Tang Yun shook her head. Did something happen to the miss? Why don't you call Yushu? Lin Yi thought about it, and it made sense. If he couldn't get through to Ming Yao's phone, Then he would call Yushu. He dialed Yushu's number, but Yushu's phone was turned off as well. Linny frowned, and he felt that something was wrong. It was possible that Mengyao's phone ran out of battery, but how could both Mengyao and Yushu's phones run out of battery? There was no signal on the road from the villa to school, so it couldn't be caused by a lack of signal. Chapter 874. Unscathed. Faubert's phone was on the dashboard of the Bentley, and Faubert couldn't pick it up when he heard it ringing. The white-clothed man was giving him a lot of pressure, and he didn't dare move recklessly. "Who are you people? Why do you want to capture Miss Chu and Shu?" Faubert looked at the white-clothed man and asked. Although he was staring at the white-clothed man, his eyes were focused on the two men in black, Mengyao and Yushu. "Stand here obediently and wait for us to leave. I won't hurt you." The white-clothed man didn't answer Faubert's question. Instead, he spoke arrogantly. Faubert frowned. There was no point in asking since the man didn't want to say anything. The only thing Faubert needed to do now was to stop these people from taking Mengyao and Yushu away. So he had to deal with the white-clothed man first. The two men in black didn't pose much of a threat to Faubert. They were just two normal people with slightly stronger bodies. It would be a piece of cake to deal with them. And so Faubert moved. He raised his right hand and sent a palm towards the white-clothed man. It was a feint, however. He wanted to force the white-clothed man back and turn around to save Mengyao and Yushu. Faubert didn't know the strength of the white-clothed man at the moment, and he didn't want to fight him head-on. As long as he could force the white-clothed man back, it would save him some time. He watched as the two men in black forced Mengyao and Yushu into the rover behind him, and Li Fu calculated the time. He'd be able to take care of the two men in black as soon as he could after the white man backed off, steal the rover, and drive away. But, as the saying goes, a person's plan can never be overpowered. Faubert thought that he would be able to force the white-clothed man back with one palm, but he didn't think that the white-clothed man wouldn't dodge at all. Instead, a cold, mocking smile flashed across his face. This smile made Faubert's heart tighten. He had already realized that something was wrong. If this white-robed man's strength didn't far surpass his, and had already reached the point of ignoring his palm, then he was a fool who didn't know what the consequences of this palm would be. Of course, Faubert did not think that this man in white was a fool. He did not believe that this man in white would not investigate his strength before doing this. Bang! Faubert's palm landed solidly on the white-robed man's body. Faubert practiced external martial arts, so how domineering was this palm? Even the recoil made Faubert's palms numb, but the man in white seemed to be completely fine as he looked at Faubert indifferently. "Finished? Does it feel good?" The white-clothed man looked at Uncle Fu in ridicule. Bang! So loud. Faubert was not in the mood to joke around with the white-clothed man. His heart was filled with shock. With this palm, even if the opponent was a mystic class master, there was no way he would be unscathed, right? Even if he wasn't heavily injured, he would definitely be sent flying. But this white-clothed man was completely fine, and he was even talking and laughing. This person, just how strong was he? Could it be that he had surpassed the mystic class? But it was impossible, right? Earth-class masters in this common world were almost extinct. "You are from House Yu?" This was the only possibility that Faubert could think of. The only people he had offended recently were House Yu. Faubert did not think that this man in front of him was sent by Zhao Qibing. If House Zhao was willing to send out masters, they wouldn't have waited until now. If they wanted to send, they would have done it long ago, and Linny wouldn't have destroyed their building twice. "House Yu? You have enmity with House Yu?" The white-clothed man smiled faintly. "It seems that you have quite a lot of enemies. But unfortunately, I am not one." "Then you are." Faubert knew that he was definitely going to die today. Li Fu, right? A physical master with the strength of the peak of the late phase of the golden class. The white-clothed man looked at Faubert and said faintly, "You are still not my opponent, but it is impolite not to reciprocate. I gave you a chance, I told you to wait for us to leave, but you didn't listen, so you can die now." As the white-clothed man spoke, he quickly raised his hand and slapped Faubert's chest. Faubert didn't even have time to dodge, and he was sent flying. Fast, it was too fast. Faubert felt that his chest had been smashed by the white-clothed man, and the intense pain made Faubert realize the strength of this person. The peak of the middle phase of the mystic class. But there was one thing that Faubert couldn't understand. Even if the opponent was a peak of the mid-phase of the mystic class, how could he be unscathed from his attack? Faubert's body landed heavily on the ground, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Faubert knew that he probably couldn't make it. A palm from a peak of the mid-phase of the mystic class wasn't something that a peak of the late phase of the golden class like him could take. If the opponent had the intention to kill him, how could he survive? How are you unscathed? Faubert clutched his chest and looked at the unscathed man in shock. Faubert. Miss cried. She saw with her own eyes how Faubert was sent flying by the white-clothed man, and he fell to the ground and spat out blood. Yushu was also shocked, and she looked at the scene in front of her dumbly. She didn't know what to do. These two girls had never experienced something like this before. Even when they met the robbers in the bank, it wasn't this bloody because they had Lin Yi's protection. Shut up. The black-clothed man heard Meng Yao scream, and he took out a towel and waved it in front of Meng Yao and Yushu, and the two fainted immediately. Drive, he ordered the driver after making Meng Yao and Yushu unconscious. Not waiting for Master Ma? The driver asked. Master Jun said that Master Ma will go by himself, and we will go first. The black-clothed man said. Okay. The driver nodded and started the car, and the Land Rover quickly left the scene, disappearing from the intersection in the blink of an eye. Faubert looked at the Land Rover in despair, and he spat out a mouthful of turbid air. He looked at the white-clothed man with blurred eyes. He couldn't hold on any longer. Do you know why I left you alive? The white-clothed man lowered his head and looked at Faubert with a condescending gaze, and said coldly, I will let you die knowing that I'm here to answer your questions. Faubert didn't say anything, and he didn't want to waste his breath. He just hoped that Lin Yi would find out as soon as possible and save Meng Yao and Yushu. My name is Ma Zhu, and I've cultivated the Golden Bell Shield. I've already broken through the 8th level, and I'm invulnerable. The man in white said proudly, Killing you is like killing an ant. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 875. News from Lingshan. The whole process didn't even take 10 minutes. Faubert felt his mind getting blurry as he listened to Ma Zhu's laughter. The police siren sounded, and the police car and ambulance arrived at the same time. One had to admit that their response speed was quite fast, but Ma Zhu was just a little faster. The owner of the store called the police, and he was shocked by the scene just now. He didn't hear the conversation between Ma Zhu and Faubert, but Ma Zhu sending Faubert flying with one slap was like watching a movie to a normal person. It was unbelievable. Organs and ribs were shattered, and there was basically no hope. This was the conclusion of the paramedics, and they couldn't send him to the hospital in time. They could only do emergency treatment in the ambulance. Lingshan was the second to arrive. The ones who'd been dispatched were the patrol officers, but seeing that it was a vicious kidnapping and assault case, they'd immediately notified the criminal police. How is it? Lingshan got out of the car and ran over quickly. Captain Song, it was the owner of the store who called the police. He's the witness, and according to his testimony, the whole case is a kidnapping case. One of the patrol officers reported to Lingshan immediately, giving her the details of the case. Did you find out the identity of the hostage and the injured? Lingshan asked after listening to the case. According to the license plate number left at the scene, the Bentley belongs to Pengzhan Industries, and the driver, the injured one, is the driver of the chairman of Pengzhan Industries, Li Fu. According to his identity, the hostage should be Meng Yao and Yushu, the patrol officer said. What? Meng Yao and Yushu? Lingshan's eyes widened. Of course, what surprised her wasn't the identity of the hostage, but the injured Li Fu. She knew that Li Fu was Pengzhan's driver and bodyguard, and Li Fu's strength was recorded by the police. He was a late-phase golden class peak physical practitioner, so how could he be so heavily injured that he couldn't even hold on anymore? What kind of strength did the kidnapper have? And according to the witness, the owner of the store was the one who sent Faubert flying with one palm. That person was at least a mystic class master. When did such a powerful master come to Songshan? Why did he kidnap Meng Yao and Yushu? But Lin Yi was Meng Yao and Yushu's bodyguard, so the first person Lingshan thought of was Lin Yi. She had to inform Lin Yi about this as soon as possible. Even if she didn't have a good impression of Meng Yao and Yushu, these two girls were always going against her, But that was business, and that was personal. Lingshan was very clear about that. And so, Lingshan sent Lu Wangli to notify Pingzhan while she called Lin Yi. When Lin Yi contacted Faubert and realized that no one picked up the phone, he felt even more uneasy. Miss and Shu's phones were both turned off, and Faubert wasn't picking up either. What did this mean? It meant that something must have happened to the three of them. Faubert isn't picking up either. Lin Yi frowned and said to Tang Yun, "You, hurry up and go take a look. Don't let anything happen." Tang Yun hesitated and said, "Then take your breakfast and eat in the car." Lin Yi was also very worried about Meng Yao's safety. In theory, with Faubert there, nothing could happen to Meng Yao, but there was always an accident. What if another master like Yu Kuan came? "Don't worry about me, I won't go. I'll go to school myself after eating." Tang Yun shook her head. She knew that now wasn't the time to be jealous. If something really happened to Meng Yao and Yushu, she would be a hindrance to Lin Yi if she followed him. So Tang Yun didn't want to cause trouble. Okay. Lin Yi smiled at Tang Yun. He was very grateful for her understanding and held her hand. "Be careful." "What do I have to be careful about?" "Just be careful." Tang Yun would be fine if she went to school alone, but she was worried that something might happen to Lin Yi. "I'll be careful." Lin Yi nodded and walked out of the breakfast shop quickly. He drove to the road from the villa to school. He wanted to find Meng Yao and Yushu along this road. Lin Yi's phone rang not long after the car left the area. Lin Yi looked at the caller ID. It was Lingshan. "Hello? What's the matter?" Lin Yi was worried about Meng Yao and Yushu's safety, so he didn't have the mood to talk to Lingshan. "Lin Yi, Meng Yao and Yushu are in trouble. They've been kidnapped, and Li Fu is heavily injured. He's in the emergency room now, but I'm afraid that he's in trouble." Lingshan didn't mind Lin Yi's tone. She was used to Lin Yi's tone. As expected, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Something had happened. He didn't think that Lingshan would respond this quickly. She was probably at the scene already. It had only been 10 minutes since Meng Yao's call. "Where are you now?" "I'll be there immediately." "Have you notified Uncle Chu?" Lin Yi asked. "I've already notified Chairman Chu," Lingshan said. "I'm at the Judian Circuit, in front of the Mingliang Culture Shop. You'll see it when you get there. There's a lot of police cars there, and they've set up a cordon." "All right, I'll be there immediately." Lin Yi hung up and accelerated the car to the max. There were a lot of cars on the road in the morning, but Lin Yi used the beetle's small size and skillful driving skills to weave through the traffic like a beetle. Lin Yi didn't slow down at all, going on the bus lane, going on the wrong lane, going on the sidewalk. Under the condition that his safety was guaranteed, Lin Yi had broken all the traffic rules he could. But Lin Yi didn't care about that anymore. Pengzhan would pay the fine later. Meng Yao and Yushu's safety was his #1 priority. Of course, other than that, Lin Yi was worried about Faubert the most. After all, the Miss and Shu's situation could be delayed, but Faubert's injuries couldn't be delayed. Lin Yi wanted to drive the car like it was a plane. Finally, Lin Yi arrived at the Judian Circuit within 5 minutes. A few police cars with flashing lights were parked on the side of the road. A group of police officers had set up a cordon to prevent pedestrians from getting close. Lin Yi quickly drove the car over, parked it next to the police line, and got out of the car. Chapter 876. Chapter 0875. Faubert's injuries. Lingshan told me to come, Lin Yi said to the officer. He took out his phone to call Lingshan when he saw Lu Wangli not far away. "Lu Wangli." Lin Yi called out immediately. The officer saw that Lin Yi not only knew Lingshan's name, but he also knew Lu Wangli. It was obvious that Lingshan had asked him to come, and so he didn't stop him. Seeing Lu Wangli walk over, the officer went back to his own business. "Lin Yi, you're here. Captain Song is over there." Lu Wangli pointed at a direction not far away. "Where's Faubert? Bring me there." Lin Yi wasn't in a rush to find Lingshan. He was worried about Faubert's injuries. Lingshan said that Faubert was heavily injured, and that he might not make it. This made Lin Yi a little worried, or else he wouldn't be driving so fast. Over here. Lu Wangli saw that Lin Yi was in such a rush, and his expression turned serious as well. He wasn't angry at Lin Yi's commanding tone, because he knew that Lin Yi was probably involved in the big cases that the police had cracked recently. Plus, Lin Yi and Ling Shan's relationship was very strange, and Lu Wangli had pretty much treated Lin Yi as Ling Shan's boyfriend. Lin Yi saw Faubert on the stretcher, and his face darkened. From the outside, Faubert's condition didn't look too good. "Leave this place to me. Everyone go back and rest." Lin Yi walked over and said to the medical staff who were busy with the work. The medical staff didn't know who Lin Yi was, and they looked at Lin Yi curiously when they heard him, but they didn't leave. "You guys go back. He can handle it here." Lu Wangli knew that Lin Yi wasn't simple, so he spoke up to help Lin Yi. "I'm sorry, officer. It's our duty to save lives and help the injured. We can't leave until we receive orders from our superiors." A leading medic walked over and said to Lu Wangli, "Are you from the First People's Hospital or the Second People's Hospital? I'll talk to your dean." Lin Yi was anxious. It wasn't that Lin Yi didn't trust these medical staff, but they couldn't save Faubert at all. First People's Hospital. The medic didn't hide anything. He wasn't sure of Lin Yi's identity, but he couldn't leave without his superior's order. Lin Yi quickly dialed Guan Xuemin's number and told him what had happened. He then asked for the medical staff's number. When the nurse heard that Lin Yi was calling Guan Xuemin, she was stunned and asked, "May I ask if you're calling Guan Xuemin?" "Yes. Do you know him?" Lin Yi was delighted and asked, "Which doctor in Songshan doesn't know Professor Guan?" The doctor said, "Are you someone recommended by Professor Guan?" Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief. He directly passed the phone to the medical staff and said, "I'm Guan Xuemin's disciple. Leave this to me. Elder Guan will explain to you." The medical staff picked up the phone and nodded after hearing Guan Xuemin's words. Guan Xuemin told him that Lin Yi was his disciple. Leave this to Lin Yi and he would immediately call Dean Qin. The medical staff was relieved after hearing Guan Xuemin's words. Not long after hanging up the phone, the dean called. "Dean Qin, hello. I'm Xiaolu." The medical staff quickly picked up the phone. Okay, I understand. We will definitely cooperate with Dr. Lin Yi." Dean Qin called and told him to try his best to fulfill Lin Yi's request and help Lin Yi save the patient. With the dean's words, Xiaolu naturally didn't have to worry about anything. Lin Yi bent down and checked on Faubert's injuries. He couldn't help but take a deep breath. Indeed, Faubert was still alive. However, it wasn't because the opponent wasn't strong enough to kill Faubert. The opponent did it on purpose to leave Faubert alive. Judging from Fu Bo's injuries, the other party should have only used one move. In other words, the other party's strength was far greater than Fu Bo's. So if the other party wanted to take Fu Bo's life, it should be a piece of cake. However, the opponent didn't do it because he didn't want Faubert to die. He probably said a few words to Faubert after he used the move. However, the most likely reason was to let Lin Yi heal Faubert's injuries. This would cause Lin Yi's strength to drop by a level. To save or not to save? Lin Yi hesitated for a moment. Emotionally speaking, Faubert treated him well. Ever since he came to Songshan, Faubert had always been kind to him and treated him like a member of the mansion. Therefore, Lin Yi didn't want anything to happen to Faubert. However, logically speaking, Lin Yi knew that using his energy to heal Faubert wasn't a smart move. The opponent had a master. If he used his energy to heal Faubert, then his strength would definitely be affected. If that happened, he might not even be able to save Meng Yao and Yushu. Although the energy could be easily obtained from the Jade Space, it still needed time. Lin Yi didn't know if he could make it in time. Lin Yi gritted his teeth. He had to save Faubert first. At least before there was news of Meng Yao and Yushu, he couldn't leave them to die. A few silver needles appeared in Lin Yi's hands. He quickly inserted them into a few acupoints on Faubert's body. He then started the art of dragon mastery. This time, it was similar to when he healed Lu Buojia. Lin Yi used the silver needles to seal a few of Faubert's meridians. Lin Yi planned to use his energy to prolong Faubert's life first, but he didn't plan to directly heal him. Because Lin Yi knew very well how terrifying the amount of energy needed to heal a person who was on the verge of death was. He was afraid that after he healed Faubert, he would enter automatic sleep mode. Doing this now was undoubtedly very dangerous. Right now, Lin Yi could only use a small portion of his energy to prolong Faubert's life. As long as he stayed alive, Lin Yi would have time to heal him after everything was over. But whether or not Faubert's martial arts could be preserved was another matter. A physical practitioner with such a serious injury was probably completely crippled. Although Lin Yi could use his energy to create a golden-class dog, he couldn't use it to create a golden-class master. The amount of energy required for a human and a dog was worlds apart. Creating a golden-class dog would force Lin Yi into hibernation mode, let alone a golden-class master. If it were possible, Xiao Xiao would have been a golden-class master a long time ago. Chapter 877. The Target Full. Lin Yi breathed out in relief. Faubert's life was safe. Whether or not he could recover his strength wasn't something Lin Yi cared about. This was all Lin Yi could do. Even so, Lin Yi was sweating profusely. He'd used up quite a bit of energy. After all, that palm strike was enough to take Faubert's life. Lin Yi hadn't healed Faubert completely, but that was only the body and bones. Lin Yi had to use his energy to repair the organs. Otherwise, any damage to any organ would be enough to take Faubert's life. If it weren't for Faubert's extraordinary physique, a normal person wouldn't be able to hold on until now. Lin Yi wiped the sweat off his forehead and raised his head to see Lingshan and Pengzhan already there, looking at him anxiously. Lingshan had seen Lin Yi heal before, and after she arrived, she sent everyone around Lin Yi away, sending Lu Wangli and his platoon to protect Lin Yi, preventing anyone from disturbing Lin Yi. How is it? Pengzhan's face was very serious, his eyebrows furrowed. He was worried about his daughter's safety, but he was also worried about Faubert's injuries. His life is safe, but I can't say if he'll be able to recover his strength. After all, Faubert is a physical practitioner, and his body was damaged to this extent. Lin Yi shrugged. His energy could only restore the damaged parts to their original state, as if he'd been reborn, but he couldn't make Faubert's body and bones return to their original state. That was something that could only be achieved after a long period of training, and it wasn't something that Lin Yi's energy could change. It wasn't like the qi of a spiritual practitioner, which could be replenished through energy conversion. This was the biggest difference between a spiritual practitioner and a physical practitioner. Once the meridians of an inner force expert were destroyed, the true qi in their body would not be able to be preserved, and they would become a cripple. On the other hand, once a physical expert's body suffered a serious injury, even if he healed, his body would not be able to return to its previous state. He would basically be no different from a normal person. It's fine as long as you're alive. Pengzhan let out a sigh of relief. It didn't matter if Faubert could recover his strength or not, as long as he could survive. Pengzhan and Faubert may be master and servant in name, but they'd been together for so many years. Humans weren't plants or trees, so how could they be emotionless? The relationship between him and Faubert was more or less that of an old friend. Even if he had to go bankrupt, he'd still want Faubert to live. How are Yao Yao and Shu? Any news? Lin Yi's face was a little pale. Healing Faubert had obviously used up a lot of his stamina, and he wasn't suited for battle in this state. However, the situation was urgent, and he couldn't afford to rest. The two Aurora SUVs that the kidnappers drove were all fake, and they used the license plate of a car rental company in Donghai. After checking through the POS machine, the original car model was a Honda CR-V, and we can't confirm the identity of the kidnappers at the moment. Lu Wangli told him what he had found out from the investigation. The kidnappers are very cunning. They should have a strong anti-tracking ability. Only a few cameras on the main roads captured the two cars. After that, they disappeared. There are two possibilities. One is that the kidnappers changed cars, and the other is that the kidnappers intentionally avoided some cameras when they arrived at their destination. Pengzhan nodded and sighed softly. He didn't even know who his opponent was this time, and he was completely at his wits' end. After hearing Lu Wangli's words, he couldn't help but turn to look at Lin Yi, hoping that he could give him an idea. Uncle Chu, since the kidnappers kidnapped Yao Yao and Shu, they must have a purpose. I believe that they will contact us first. Lin Yi sighed and said, if the kidnappers didn't want to use Yao Yao and Shu for some purpose, they wouldn't have kidnapped them. If it was just a grudge, then they would have been killed on the spot like Faubert. Yeah, but they're both girls. Pengzhan actually thought of the same thing. Since the kidnappers kidnapped his daughter and Shu, they must be trying to use them for some purpose, but he was afraid that the kidnappers would be tempted. Instead of being troubled here, why don't we go back and wait for the kidnapper's call? Lin Yi suggested. He needed to continue sleeping for a while to replenish his stamina. Otherwise, even if there was news of the kidnappers, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to fight them. Okay. Peng Zhan was no longer the high-spirited chairman of a company, but an anxious father. He didn't have any ideas, but since Lin Yi suggested to go back and wait, there was nothing else he could do. Lingshan didn't stop him because she knew that if Lin Yi couldn't solve the problem, there was no point for her to be anxious. Since Lin Yi wanted to go back, then let him go. As for Faubert, Lin Yi didn't send him to the hospital. Instead, he asked Lu to send him to the villa. Lin Yi had Faubert's injuries under control. As long as Faubert didn't get injured again, his condition wouldn't worsen. At this moment, only Lin Yi, Peng Zhan, and Faubert were left in the villa, along with General Weiwu, the golden-class dog. Are we just going to wait for the kidnappers to contact us? Peng Zhan looked at his watch anxiously. It had been more than an hour, and the kidnappers hadn't called yet. It made him restless. Other than that, I can't think of any better ideas. Lin Yi sighed as well. The most important thing is that I need to rest. I used up quite a bit of qi to control Uncle Fu's injuries, and I'm afraid that this is a trap set up by the enemy, leaving Uncle Fu alive on purpose to exhaust my strength. Lin Yi sighed as well. Peng Zhan's face stiffened when he heard Lin Yi's words. He didn't think so much before, but after hearing what Lin Yi said, he felt that it was very possible. He quickly said, Go rest, I'll wait for the kidnapper's call. No need, it's fine on the sofa. Lin Yi said and closed his eyes, entering into a state of fake sleep. Lin Yi didn't sleep soundly. After entering the jade space, he still knew what was happening outside. Although Lin Yi entered the jade space and tried his best to absorb the energy in the space, his brain didn't rest at all. He kept guessing who the kidnappers were. According to the sequence of events, Lin Yi locked onto two people. One was House Yu's Yu Kuan, and the other was Zhen Ingjun. Chapter 878. The kidnappers demands with House Yu's style of doing things. They should be here for revenge. Why did they kidnap Ming Yao and Yushu? After killing Faubert, they should be here for him. However, the kidnappers didn't do that. So Lin Yi thought for a long time and crossed out the possibility of House Yu, leaving only Zhen Ingjun. Although Lin Yi didn't know Zhen Ingjun's background, if Zhen Ingjun could really find such a master to help him, he might be able to do what he did. Firstly, although Zhen Ingjun had a grudge against him, the grudge wasn't with him but with Ming Yao and Yushu. Ming Yao and Yushu were the ones who made him lose face in the billiard room. Although he helped them secretly, Zhen Ingjun didn't know that. After that, at the door of the billiard room, although he was the one who punished him, the one who asked him to punish him was Yushu. So, if the kidnappers were Zhen Ingjun's men, everything would be explained. However, Lin Yi felt uneasy when he thought that the kidnappers were Zhen Ingjun. Zhen Ingjun had been drooling over Ming Yao and Yushu for a long time. Would he do anything to them after this kidnapping? Lu Wangli's deduction was correct. The kidnappers had changed their car in a secluded place. Two identical Land Rovers on the road was simply too eye-catching, and it would easily attract the attention of the police. So in an empty alley, the man in black and Maju brought Ming Yao and Yushu to an old Toyota Previa that had been prepared. Previa was also called the Tyrant. It was an early model of business car, and there were a lot of them in the market. After changing the car, the group of people didn't stand out and looked very ordinary. As for the two Land Rovers, the people who had contacted them quickly removed the fake license plates and replaced them with real license plates. Each person took one and drove off in two different directions. This way no one would suspect them anymore. After getting in the car, one of the men in black called Zhen Ingjun. Master Jun, the hostages are in our hands. We changed cars safely. Oh. That's great. Good job, I'll call Peng Zhan right now. Zhen Ingjun danced happily when he heard that the plan went smoothly. Alright, how's Master Ma? Old Ma has already followed your instructions and didn't completely kill Li Fu. If Lin Yi wants to save him, he will have to expend a large amount of true qi. At that time, his strength will definitely be weakened, and he won't be a threat anymore. The man in black reported. Good, that's great. Come quickly, I can't wait anymore. Zhen Ingjun nodded. Previously, in order to successfully kill Lin Yi, He purposely told Ma Zhu not to kill Faubert, and to leave him alive. Isn't Lin Yi a doctor? If he wanted Faubert to live, he would need to expend a large amount of true qi. This was the plan that Zhen Yingjun thought of when Yao Wang treated him. If he used Faubert's injuries to hold Lin Yi back and make Lin Yi use up a large amount of true qi, then no matter how skilled he was, he wouldn't be a match for Ma Zhu and the firearms team. A medical expert would need to use up a large amount of qi to heal someone. This was also proven by Ma Zhu, which was why the previous scene happened. Otherwise, Ma Zhu wouldn't need to tell Uncle Fu so many times that he kept him alive just to clear up his doubts. This was just to confuse Faubert and make him not know his real purpose. Otherwise, Ma Zhu wouldn't have the time to waste with Faubert. Chu Pingzhan sat on the sofa and waited for the kidnapper's call. However, he felt restless and couldn't calm down at all. Chu Pingzhan glanced at Lin Yi, who was resting with his eyes closed, and stood up abruptly. He felt that he had to do something, but after standing up, he didn't know what to do. Although Lin Yi was resting with his eyes closed, he wasn't idling around. He was thinking of a plan in his mind. Zhen Yingjuan's actions had already touched Lin Yi's bottom line. He was thinking that if the kidnappers didn't call after he recovered his strength, then Lin Yi would go straight to House Zhen and dig them out even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground. Just when Chu Pingzhan stood up, the phone in his pocket suddenly rang. Chu Pingzhan quickly took it out and looked at the caller ID. It was a hidden number with all the numbers 0. Hello, I'm Chu Pingzhan. Chu Pingzhan was very sure that the caller was the kidnappers. After all, normal people didn't need to hide their numbers when they called. Hello, Mr. Chu. It's my pleasure to meet you. There was a piercing voice on the other side of the phone. It was obvious that the voice had been changed by a voice changer. The fake politeness made Chu Pingzhan even more uncomfortable. Who are you? What's the matter? Chu Pingzhan frowned and asked. Who I am isn't important. What's important is that you want to know the whereabouts of your daughter and her best friend. I'm an insider. Wahahaha. The person on the phone was unscrupulous and fearless. My daughter and Shu were kidnapped by you? What do you want? Chu Pingzhan was completely sure of the identity of the caller. It must be the kidnappers. However, this made Chu Pingzhan feel a little more at ease. As long as the kidnappers were willing to contact him, it was a good thing. Chu Pingzhan wasn't afraid that the kidnappers would give him some conditions. He was afraid that the kidnappers wouldn't accept the conditions and would take his daughter away silently. Mr. Chu, you're wrong. What do you mean I kidnapped them? I'm just an insider, the person said shamelessly. I only heard that Mr. Chu offered a reward of 200 million to anyone who can provide information. Is that true? Pingzhan was infuriated by the caller. What the hell was this guy trying to do? He wanted a ransom, but he said it was a bounty. Yes. But Chu Pingzhan knew that he shouldn't anger the kidnappers. He could only nod and say, that's right. You want 200 million? I can give it to you. But you must guarantee the safety of my daughter and Shu. If they are harmed, I won't give you the money. Chapter 879. Another 50 million indeed. Zhen Dazhou had investigated Pingzhan Industries and Pingzhan's personal assets, and the amount he was asking for was within the limits of what Pingzhan could accept. He only wanted cash, not shares or real estate, since he couldn't sell them at all. Wouldn't he be waiting for the police to catch him? He wasn't an idiot. Mr. Chu, I'm just a good Samaritan, and I can only guarantee that your daughter and her best friend come back alive. As for whether or not they get hurt, that's not my concern. That's what the kidnappers do. The caller said shamelessly, not afraid of Pingzhan's threat at all. Pingzhan's heart froze. He was afraid that his daughter and Shu would be harmed by the kidnappers, and it was highly likely that they would do that. Pingzhan gripped the phone tightly, his body trembling. How can I not hurt Yao Yao and Shu? I can give you however much you want. Oh, it seems like you don't want to work with me anymore, Mr. Chu? The caller changed the topic with a cold smile. All right then, just wait to collect your daughter's and her best friend's bodies. Wait. Pingzhan sighed. It seemed like his daughter and Shu coming back alive was already a blessing, and he couldn't care less about the humiliation. It wasn't something his daughter and Shu wanted, and it was fine as long as they didn't make it public. It was better than dying. Oh, did you change your mind again, Mr. Chu? The caller seemed to know that Pingzhan would change his mind, and continue the conversation. All right, I promise you, but please don't hurt them. If possible, I'll think of a way to give you another 50 million as compensation, Pengzhan said. I, Pengzhan, am a man of my word. You can ask around in the business world about my trustworthiness. I'm a man of my word, I hope you can trust me. Naturally, I know about your trustworthiness, but this isn't up to me. The caller said faintly. Go get the money now, I'll call you later and tell you how to pay. No problem, I'll prepare it as soon as possible, Pengzhan said. Don't call the police, or your daughter will die a horrible death, the caller reminded Pengzhan. Pengzhan smiled coldly inwardly. Weren't you supposed to be a good Samaritan? I'm not allowed to call the police again? Did he finally give himself away? But Pengzhan, naturally, wouldn't say what he was thinking. He didn't want to provoke the criminal. Don't worry, it won't happen. In actuality, Pengzhan didn't plan on calling the police. There was obviously a master on the other side, and the police's involvement would only anger them. Even if they managed to save his daughter in the end, they might not be able to stop the master. What would they do in the future? This would definitely provoke these people to retaliate even more crazily. The next time, it wouldn't be as simple as kidnapping. Perhaps he would be directly killed like Faubert. Lin Yi's phone rang not long after Pengzhan hung up. Lin Yi had been training in the Jade space, but he could still hear the conversation between Pengzhan and the kidnappers. He didn't say anything, however, because he wanted to make the most of every second he had to recover his strength. Now that his phone was ringing, Lin Yi could only return to reality from the training space. He picked up the phone, thinking that it was also the kidnappers, but it was Ling Shan's number. Hello? Any news? Lin Yi asked. We've already monitored Mr. Pengzhan's phone, and we've heard the call from the kidnappers, but we didn't manage to locate them. The call came from a foreign IP phone server. Ling Shan said, a little regretful. Do you need us to do anything? Not at the moment, I can handle it myself. They obviously have a master, and you're not their match. Lin Yi rejected Ling Shan's help. Ling Shan wasn't too happy with the words you're not his opponent, but she understood that she really wasn't his opponent. She and Faubert were evenly matched. One was a late-phase golden class spiritual practitioner, and the other was a late-phase golden class peak physical practitioner. If they really fought, they should be evenly matched. But the kidnappers could injure Faubert with one palm. Ling Shan would probably end up the same if she went. Then, be careful. Miss Dummy is cheering for you. Ling Shan didn't know why, but she was a little worried. He pressured her so much, and she was actually worried for him? Ling Shan didn't understand her own thoughts either. Okay. Lin Yi hung up. The reason why Songshan was called Songshan was because there were many mountains nearby. Other than Shuangyan Mountain that was developed into a tourist attraction, some of the steeper mountains weren't developed. Normally, no one would go up there. Among these steep mountains, there was one called South Mirror Mountain. Of course, this was a common name given to the mountain by the locals. As for the geographical name of the mountain, almost no one could say for sure. Even the name of this mountain might not be on the map. The reason why South Mirror Mountain was called South Mirror Mountain was because it was located to the south of Songshan. The name Mirror meant that the mountain was very steep and full of rocks. After the rain, it was as smooth as a mirror. In short, there was nothing on the mountain, and normal people wouldn't go up there. Today, there were 2 cars parked at the foot of the mountain. One was a Benz with a Donghai license plate, and the other was a Toyota Previa. On the mountain, Zhen Yingjun just called Pengzhan with a voice changer. He hesitated for a moment. Originally, he wanted to ask Pengzhan for 200 million, play with his daughter and Yushu, and then kill Lin Yi. That would be the end of the debt. However, when he said that Pengzhan would give him another 50 million, he was tempted. That was 50 million. He only spent 40 million on the doctor, and Pengzhan added another 50 million. The condition was that he couldn't hurt Mingyao and Yushu. Zhang Yingjun would be lying if he said that he wasn't tempted. He was really tempted. What kind of concept was 50 million? 10,000 was enough to find a prostitute, let alone 50 million. It was too much for him to play with Mingyao and Yushu. Chapter 880. Drool over it. Long Mingyao and Yushu were the best of the best. He had never seen such beautiful girls in Donghai before, And he didn't want to give them up just like that. Fuck 50 million, it was worth it. He would pretend that Pengzhan never said anything. Thinking of this, Zhang Yingjun gritted his teeth and walked towards the cave. After negotiating the price with Pengzhan, it was time for him to enjoy the two beauties. After Mengyao and Yushu woke up, they realized that their hands and feet were tied up and they were thrown into a cave. The light was dim and they couldn't see clearly. Yao Yao sis, are you awake? Yushu subconsciously called Mengyao as soon as she woke up. Yes. Mengyao woke up 10 minutes earlier than Yushu. She was looking around the cave with an indescribable sadness on her face. The scene of Faubert flying out kept appearing in her mind. Mengyao really hoped that it was just a dream and everything would be over when she woke up. But it wasn't a dream. Where are we? Are we dreaming? Yushu just woke up and was a little dazed. We're not dreaming, we're caught. Mengyao shook her head and said sadly, I wonder how Faubert is. Is he okay? He should be okay. Don't forget that Shield Bro is a miracle doctor. He can even cure General Weiwu. Yushu was very optimistic. It's not the same. If Lin Yi wants to save Faubert, he'll need a lot of time and use up a lot of pure energy. If he wants to save us now, he can't save Faubert. Mengyao thought that Lin Yi would save Faubert, but the more she thought about it, the less likely it was, unless Lin Yi didn't care about her and Shu anymore. Yushu heard Mengyao's words and started to worry. You guys woke up? That's great, if not, I'll have to wake you up. I don't like unresponsive women. Zhang Yingjun walked into the cave, and was surprised to see Mengyao and Yushu awake. Zhang Yingjun? It's you? So you kidnapped us. Mengyao was trying to guess who captured them, and who had such a deep grudge against them that they wanted to kill Faubert, but she didn't expect it to be Zhang Yingjun. Haha, that's right, it's me. Zhang Yingjun laughed. How is it? You didn't expect this, did you? I didn't expect that. We don't have any deep hatred, do we? Why did you do it? Mengyao asked. She was trying her best to buy time. She knew that the longer she delayed, the more time Lin Yi would have to save them. No. You made me have a crooked mouth and crippled legs, and you say I don't have a deep hatred for you? The most infuriating thing is that he even did something to my body, causing me to be impotent. Zhang Yingjun was enraged when Mengyao mentioned the hatred between them. His eyes were filled with anger. Thank God Yao Wang saved me, or I would have become a living eunuch. This was all because I kicked an old lady who was picking up scraps, and what I kicked was the sack in her hands, and you guys let that bastard do this to me. Don't you think this is a deep grudge? Mengyao and Yushu paused. They knew that Lin Yi had given him a crooked mouth and a limp leg, but they didn't think much of it, thinking that it was just a temporary thing. They didn't know that Lin Yi had given him some sort of impotence. The two couldn't help but blush when they heard the word since it involved their privacy. However, they didn't let Lin Yi make Zhang Yingjun impotent. Did Lin Yi do it on his own? Even if Lin Yi did it on his own, they didn't blame Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi did it for them. Then what do you want? Mengyao didn't dwell on the question and asked directly. What do I want? My impotence has just been cured, and I'm looking for a girl to test it on. I've been drooling over you two for a long time, so I'll test it on you two today. Zhang Yingjun said fiercely. Mengyao was shocked. She didn't expect Zhang Yingjun to do this. She was shocked, angry, and scared at the same time. She looked at Zhang Yingjun. How dare you? If you do that, the consequences will be severe. Consequences? What consequences can there be? Zhang Yingjun laughed nonchalantly. I've already called Chu Pengzhan, and even he allowed me to do something to you. As long as I don't kill you, what's there for me to be afraid of? Lin Yi will kill you. Mengyao wasn't afraid at all. She didn't expect Zhang Yingjun to call her father already. Yeah, Yao Yao sis and I are Shield Bro's first and second wives. He will kill you, Yushu added. Lin Yi is in a precarious situation himself. He will die soon. Although Zhang Yingjun used to be afraid of Lin Yi was already a dead man in his eyes. Under the combined attack of the firearms team and Maju, Lin Yi had no chance of surviving. Mengyao was shocked. She didn't think that Zhang Yingjun was boasting. He must have his reasons. After all, Uncle Fu was severely injured by the master beside him, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. What if the master was stronger than Lin Yi? Then Lin Yi coming here was no doubt a suicide mission. She didn't want Lin Yi to come here anymore. Alright, cut the bullshit. Which one of you is going to give yourself first? Zhen Yingjun looked at Meng Yao and Yushu with a lecherous smile. He felt that his lower body was reacting. Haha, Yao Wang was so powerful. He didn't have any reaction when he took Viagra, but after being treated by Zhen Yingjun, he became majestic all of a sudden. Oh wait, I need to go to the washroom. You go out first. Yushu suddenly said to Zhen Yingjun. Washroom? Zhen Yingjun froze. He didn't expect Yushu to want to go to the washroom at this time. He asked subconsciously. Do you want to go to the washroom? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Yushu said. I also want to go to the washroom. Meng Yao didn't know what Yushu meant, but she knew that Yushu was always weird and had a lot of ideas. She must have her reasons for wanting to go to the washroom at this time. Fuck. What a lazy donkey. Zhen Yingjun was furious. He was in high spirits and these two wanted to go to the washroom. He had no choice but to say, then hurry up. Go out for a while. Otherwise, how can we come out in front of you? Yushu said. Chapter 881. You win. No, if you don't go out, I can't come out. I will pee my pants. Yushu didn't give up. You. Zhen Yingjun cursed. You win. If Yushu and Meng Yao really peed their pants, how disgusting would that be? There was no place to take a shower in the cave. How was he going to play if they peed their pants? Zhen Yingjun had no choice but to leave the cave. But Yushu called out again. Hey, how can I go to the washroom with my hands tied up? Zhen Yingjun cursed Yushu for being a busybody. He walked over, lowered his head and untied the ropes on Yushu's hands and feet. Under the dim light in the cave, Yushu's blush made her look even more alluring. Zhen Yingjun was tempted and he wanted to grab her breasts. A girl with a child's face and huge breasts was rare. Just when Zhen Yingjun wanted to have some fun, Yushu said, Don't touch me. I will pee my pants if you touch me. Ha! Zhen Yingjun was shocked by Yushu's words. His hands that were hanging in the air stopped abruptly. He glared at Yushu. Why are you so troublesome? Hurry up, you will really pee your pants later. Yushu ignored Zhen Yingjun and continued to rush him. Zhen Yingjun scoffed, stood up, and walked out of the cave. He wanted to peek in from the outside, but the blinding light from the outside was a stark contrast to the darkness in the cave. He couldn't see anything from the outside. It was pitch black. Zhen Yingjun could only give up and go check on the gun team's ambush. He had to make sure that after he lured Lin Yi here, he would shoot Lin Yi to death. However, he couldn't expose his men and raise Lin Yi's vigilance. It was hard to hide in the sparse forest on the mountain, so the gun team could only find a rock to cover themselves and hope that Lin Yi would kill them in one shot. In the cave, Yushu wasn't in a hurry to go to the washroom. She opened her bag first, thinking that the men in black had taken her phone but not her bag. The bag was still straddling her even when they were tied up. Shu, what are you doing? Aren't you going to the washroom? Meng Yao asked. What for? We didn't even drink water in the morning. I tricked Zhen Yingjun to go out so that we can prepare ourselves. We can't let him do that, Yushu said as she quickly flipped through her bag. Meng Yao frowned. You have a way to avoid it? Yeah, I don't like him. Yao sis, you should save your first time for shield bro. How can you give it to an idiot like him? Yushu nodded. Why am I involved again? You wanted to give it to Lin Yi, didn't you? Meng Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she glared at Yushu, still in the mood to joke around at a time like this. Oh, you have to think about it first. I'm the small wife. Yushu suddenly shouted in surprise. I found it. Meng Yao looked at the thing in Yushu's hands. It was a pack of sanitary napkins. She paused for a moment and understood Yushu's plan, but she was still suspicious. You want to trick him with this? Will it work? Although that Zhen Yingjun looks dumb, he shouldn't be that easy to trick, right? Of course it won't work, but what if I add some spices? Yushu smiled mischievously as she took out the red ink she'd bought this morning. She opened up 2 sanitary napkins and quickly poured the ink on them, before tossing them into a corner of the cave. She then took out a bottle of water and poured it on them, pretending like she'd just taken a shower. Ugh! Meng Yao was a little dumbfounded. Was this even possible? But it did look like it if she didn't look closely. Phew, I'm not done yet. Yushu took out 2 sanitary napkins and poured the fountain water on them before stuffing them into her pants. Shoo. You. Mengyao's eyes widened. That's so much fountain water. It's so dirty. Yao Yao, what about you? Come, I'll help you put it in your pants. Yushu took out another sanitary napkin and said to Mengyao. Me. Me too? Mengyao said, feeling disgusted as she looked at the sanitary napkin that was covered in ink. Oh Yao Yao, if you don't want to take a shower, just bear with it for a while. We can always go home and take a shower. Yushu didn't really care. Mengyao could only acquiesce to Yushu's words. It felt weird, but Mengyao had to admit that Yushu's idea wasn't bad. After everything was done, Yushu closed her bag and hid the fountain water. Done. Although Yushu's idea prevented the two from being violated by Zhen Yingjun, Mengyao felt sad when she thought of Faubert. Shoo, it's our fault for hurting Faubert. If we didn't want to mess with Zhen Yingjun, this wouldn't have happened. I think that Shield Bro will have a way. Yushu trusted Lin Yi. You really trust him? Mengyao also hoped that Lin Yi would save Faubert first. It'd be best if he didn't come to save her and Shu. From Zhen Yingjun's tone, he seemed to be prepared. If Lin Yi came, it'd be dangerous. Oh, it's all right. Yushu nodded. Yao Yao, don't you trust Shield Bro? He's saved us so many times already. I don't know. Mengyao shook her head. She was a little down because of Faubert. As they talked, Zhen Yingjun returned to the cave. Hey, are you two done peeing? Dilly-dallying. You really have a lot of things to do. Oh, I'm done. Is there anything else? Yushu asked. What is it? Of course it's us. Zhen Yingjun chuckled, and a trace of desire flashed across his eyes. I don't think you can do it today. Yushu said regretfully. Can't do it? You think I can't do it? If I say I can, then I must. Zhen Yingjun was amused by Yushu's words. She was already in his hands, and she was still saying such childish words. No, I mean we're here for that. Yushu said with a shrug. Doing that? Which one? Zhen Yingjun froze for a second and reacted immediately. He looked at Yushu in disbelief. Really? Are you lying to a ghost? But you're not a ghost. Yushu shook her head. If you don't believe me, look over there. There's our sanitary napkins. Chapter 882. Successful deception. Zhen Yingjun had a problem since he was young, and that was getting dizzy when he saw the blood. He quickly stood up, but he still couldn't believe that the two of them could do that together. How could there be such a coincidence? Zhen Yingjun didn't doubt the authenticity of the sanitary napkin on the ground because the light in the cave was dim, and he couldn't see if it was blood or something else. All he thought was that it didn't make sense for the two of them to do it together. You two came together? Zhen Yingjun frowned as he looked at Yushu and Mengyao. Yeah, actually, we're Lin Yi's first and second wives, and we always do threesomes together. In order to ensure that we can do it for 25 days a month, we purposely mixed our periods with medicine. Yushu said shyly with a serious face. Ha! Zhen Yingjun froze. You're not *S? Of course not. Yushu looked at Zhen Yingjun in disdain. We're already 18 years old. How can we still be *S? Zhen Yingjun was confused by Yushu, and didn't know if she was telling the truth or not. However, Mengyao did say that if he touched them, Lin Yi would kill him. Could they really be Lin Yi's first and second wives? Wasn't Lin Yi a bodyguard? That's right, a master of medicine like Lin Yi would be treated like a VIP no matter where he went. Even Master Bing respected Yao Wang, so how could Lin Yi be willing to be a follower for two girls? Zhen Yingjun didn't believe that Lin Yi had nothing to do with them. Now it seemed like Yushu wasn't lying. You're not lying? Take off your pants, let me check. Zhen Yingjun would believe it if Mengyao did it, but Yushu was too cunning and he didn't believe her. Oh okay, I'll show it to you, turn around first. Yushu said to Zhen Yingjun. Don't play tricks, take off your pants and let me see. Zhen Yingjun naturally wouldn't turn around as he was afraid that Yushu would play tricks on him. Okay, I'll take it out for you to see. Yushu turned around and quickly took out something from her pants and passed it to Zhen Yingjun. Here. Zhen Yingjun was shocked when Yushu handed him something bloody. He subconsciously moved back and took a closer look. It was indeed a sanitary napkin with blood on it. He quickly waved his hand. Take it away, take it away. He had a phobia for blood, and the sight of it made him dizzy. But now he believed Yushu's words. These two really did it. Yushu threw the bloody sanitary napkin to the side and waved her hand, scaring Zhen Yingjun into hiding again. Actually, if we didn't do it, we wouldn't mind being played with by you. As long as you don't tell Lin Yi, Yushu said regretfully. But the day you chose isn't good. Why don't you wait a few days? We're in your hands anyway. It doesn't matter if you wait a few days. Fuck. So fucking unlucky. How can it be red? Zhen Yingjun saw that he had no chance and ignored Yushu. He tied Yushu's hands and feet together while cursing and tied Mingyao's hands and feet again. He instinctively rejected blood, so after tying the rope, he didn't want to stay here any longer. He stood up and walked out of the cave. However, as soon as he reached the entrance of the cave, Zhen Yingjun burst into laughter again. Wahahaha. It seems like even the heavens want me to be rich. Zhen Yingjun suddenly remembered that if he didn't touch Mingyao and Yushu, didn't Pengzhan promise him another 50 million? Now that he calmed down and thought about it, 50 million to play with two girls, and they weren't virgins? That was a huge loss for him. Money was the best. With 50 million, he could get any girl he wanted. Zhen Yingjun gave up on the idea of violating Mingyao and Yushu, and became more rational. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it wasn't worth it. Fortunately, these two girls were popular. Otherwise, he would have lost 50 million yuan just because of that moment of pleasure. Zhen Yingjun picked up his phone and dialed Pengzhan's number again. Pengzhan wanted to discuss a plan with Lin Yi after receiving the call, but Ling Shan's call came before he could even open his mouth. The kidnappers asked for 200 million. Pengzhan said after Ling Shan and Lin Yi hung up. The kidnappers asked for 200 million. Then give it to him. I'm just afraid that he won't be able to spend it even if he takes it, Lin Yi said indifferently. I also think so. As long as Yao Yao and Shu are safe and sound, no matter how much money it is, I will give it to him. Pengzhan sighed. But it sounds like a kidnapper. He has other intentions towards Yao Yao and Shu. This was what he was most worried about. He hoped that the two girls could buy as much time as they could and wait for him to save them. That Shu girl was smart. She should be able to think of a way to deal with this situation. As the two were talking, Pengzhan's phone rang again. Pengzhan looked at the caller ID with a serious expression. It was still the same number with a bunch of zeros. He picked it up seriously. Hello. Mr. Chu, after careful consideration, I've decided to accept your suggestion. 250 million. I won't hurt your daughter and her best friend. What do you think? Zhen Yingjun was glad that he didn't have sex with Mingyao and Yushu. If he did, he would lose the money. Okay, I agree. 250 million it is. Pengzhan was surprised and happy after hearing Zhen Yingjun's words. He had already prepared for the worst, and didn't expect the kidnappers to agree to his suggestion. It seemed like the kidnappers valued money more than anything else. Pengzhan didn't know that Yushu caused a strange incident that made Zhen Yingjun give up. Great. But, I don't want you to give it to me later. I want you to give me 250 million together. Is that okay? Although Zhen Yingjun knew that Pengzhan had a good reputation, that was only for business partners. He was playing the role of a kidnapper. How could he talk about his reputation with a kidnapper? Chapter 883. Chapter 0882. Borrowing money from Lin Yi. With that thought, Pengzhan nodded. Okay, I promise you. But how can I give you the money? After I give it to you, will you let my daughter and Shu go immediately? I'll give you an account and you can transfer the money there. After I check the account, I'll give you an address. Tell the man named Lin Yi to pick up your daughter and her best friend. Remember, he can only come alone. If there are too many people, we will kill the hostages. Zhen Yingjun said. Of course, I believe that Mr. Chu is a smart man and won't call the police. The masters around me can kill Faubert. So naturally, they can also kill your family silently. Although Pengzhan was suspicious why Zhen Yingjun asked Lin Yi to pick up the hostages, he only had Lin Yi by his side. If Lin Yi didn't go, who else could he ask? Okay, I won't call the police. I hope you will keep your promise, Pengzhan said. Don't worry, we kidnappers have our own rules. Just look at our professionalism, and you should believe that we are professionals. Zhen Yingjun said. The account number is XXXXX. Zhen Yingjun told him the account number, And after Pengzhan wrote it down, he confirmed it with him before hanging up. After the threat, Zheng Ningjun believed that Pengzhan wouldn't dare to call the police. With Ma Zhu's strength, Pengzhan would definitely be afraid that he would take revenge on him. Pengzhan was now an influential figure in Pengzhan Industries, so no one dared to say anything when Pengzhan mobilized the company's cash flow. However, the total cash flow was only 210 million. Of course, this was at the expense of the company's future operations. Pengzhan Industries wouldn't have a single cent of liquid funds left once the 210 million was taken out. It would be a fatal blow to Pengzhan Industries, but Pengzhan didn't care about that. He was worried about his daughter's safety. Even if he had to resign from his position as chairman and give his shares to the shareholders as compensation, he didn't mind. Lin Yi didn't know much about business operations, but he did know what would happen if a company ran out of liquid funds. "Uncle Chu, let me help you," Lin Yi said when Pengzhan was about to withdraw all of the company's funds. "You?" Pengzhan was slightly taken aback. He didn't know that Lin Yi and Fatty Lai had started a company, and Meng Yao didn't tell him either. He only thought that Lin Yi and Fatty Lai had a good relationship, but he didn't know that Lin Yi played a role in Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Huh. Lin Yi took out his phone and called Fatty Lai. "Fatty Lai, how much cash do you have?" "Boss, cash. Why are you suddenly asking this? What's wrong? What happened?" Fatty Lai asked. "It's an emergency," Lin Yi said. "Cash, we can only get 30 to 40 million at most. All the money from the auction was used to buy the production line and build the factory. Our products aren't on the market yet, so most of the funds are stored in the warehouse for medicine." Fatty Lai explained. 40 million, that's too little. Lin Yi sighed. He didn't expect money to be so careless. Opening a medical company required so much investment. In fact, Fatty Lai also wanted to be the biggest medical company, and he bought the most advanced production line in the world. Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company was different from Dr. Kang's medical company. Other than injury medicine, Miracle Dr. Guan would also release more advanced medicine such as painkillers. If it was possible, the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing could be mass-produced as well. That would require very advanced equipment, so Fatty Lai decided to get everything done in one go. According to the current calculations, 30 to 40 million in liquid funds was enough to successfully push Miracle Dr. Guan's first hit product, Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine, onto the market. 30 to 40 million wasn't even needed. Because of the poisoning of the first middle school students, Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company's name had already spread far and wide. There was no need to advertise anymore. Once the product was put on the market and the sales increased, it could instantly generate hundreds of millions of profits. Lin Yi knew that Fatty Lai was planning according to the company's current situation. He probably didn't expect him to suddenly need money, so he didn't blame him. "Boss, should I borrow some money from my brother?" Fatty Lai could tell that Lin Yi was in a hurry, so he suggested. No need. Lin Yi knew that Fatty Lai and his brother weren't on good terms, so he rejected the suggestion. "You have Lu Tiany's number, right? Give it to me. I'll borrow some from him." "Yes, wait a moment. His number is 139x times x times x. Fatty Lai gave a number to Lin Yi. Lin Yi remembered Lu Tiany's number and called him. Lu Tiany remembered Lin Yi's number, but Lin Yi didn't remember his number. Now that Lin Yi called, Lu Tiany was shocked. He didn't expect Lin Yi to call him. As the young master of House Lu, Lu Tiany naturally knew how important Lin Yi was to House Lu. It could be said that he had been thinking of ways to get close to Lin Yi, but he didn't have the chance. He had some conflict with Lin Yi before, and it could be said that their relationship wasn't that harmonious. After that, he offended Lin Yi because of his wife's nephew Wu Qintian. This caused the relationship between House Lu and Lin Yi to sink to a freezing point. Fortunately, he was humble and low profile, and that was how things got better. Lu Tiany was filled with regret. If it weren't for his useless wife, he wouldn't have become enemies with Lin Yi. Seeing Lin Yi's pill of life extension and toxin cleansing become a hot item in the auction, and seeing his father turn from an old man on the verge of death into a healthy man, Lu Tiany felt the importance of building a good relationship with Lin Yi. That was why he envied Lai Changyi. This Fatty Lai was just a small businessman, and his business wasn't that big. But now he had become Lin Yi's follower. He was so amazing, so amazing. Before, Lu Tianyi was polite when he spoke to Fatty Lai, but he still took the lead. But now the two of them had swapped positions, and Lu Tianyi and Fatty Lai were talking very carefully. It couldn't be helped, his boss was amazing. Chapter 884. A changed mind. So, Lu Tianyi knew that if he wanted to keep in touch with Lin Yi, he couldn't cut off contact with Fatty Lai, especially when Fatty Lai wasn't that powerful yet. In a few years, House Lai might even become the #1 noble house. However, Lu Tianyi didn't expect Lin Yi to call him. Lu Tianyi took a deep breath and picked up the phone carefully. Hello, I'm Lu Tianyi. Mr. Lu? I'm Lin Yi. Can you lend me 100 million? Lin Yi didn't waste time and said directly. If you don't return it, I'll return you a pill or treat your family for free. Sure, it's just 100 million. Miracle Dr. Lin, if you want to use it, just take it. What do you mean by not returning it? Isn't it too vulgar to mention that? Lu Tianyi was just worrying about how to get closer to Lin Yi, and now Lin Yi called him to borrow money. Lu Tianyi was so happy that he could die. How could he not agree? As for whether Lin Yi would return the money or not, that was secondary. Building a good relationship with Lin Yi was the most important goal. Thank you in advance. I'll text you an account number, and you can transfer it to me, Lin Yi said. Okay, no problem. Lu Tianyi agreed quickly. These days, there weren't many people who begged others to borrow money, but Lu Tianyi was definitely one of them. He didn't even want Lin Yi to return the money. Lin Yi didn't say anything and hung up. Peng Zhan's eyes widened as he looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. When Lin Yi and Fatty Lai were on the phone, he heard it from the side. When he heard that Lin Yi wanted Lu Tianyi's number, he thought he heard it wrong. Who was Lu Tianyi? The young master of Yanjing's noble house. Lin Yi wanted to borrow money from him? Did he hear it wrong? However, after Lin Yi called Lu Tianyi, Peng Zhan realized that what he heard was the truth. Lin Yi really did borrow 100 million from Lu Tianyi, and it didn't take any effort or persuasion at all. The guy seemed to be very happy to lend the money to Lin Yi. Uncle Chu, I borrowed 100 million from Lu Tianyi first. Don't use all of the company's liquid funds, it'll affect the company's operations, Lin Yi said with a smile as he looked at the shocked Peng Zhan. Yanjing's house lose Lu Tianyi? Peng Zhan still couldn't believe it. That's him, Lin Yi nodded. Give me the account number, I'll have him transfer the money over. Peng Zhan took in a deep breath. He didn't think that Lin Yi would have been in Songshan for such a long time already. It was no wonder why he didn't put House Yu in his eyes back then, even daring to kill House Yu's men. As it turned out, Lin Yi borrowed 100 million from another noble house's young master in such a calm and unquestionable tone, and the guy was happy to lend it to him. With Lu Tianyi's 100 million, Peng Zhan easily transferred the remaining 150 million to the kidnapper's account number. About 10 minutes later, the kidnapper called again. It was still the same number that was full of zeros. Peng Zhan picked up the phone. Hello. Mr. Chu, you have a good reputation. The ransom is in so quickly. Zhang Yingjun was a little excited. He didn't know that being a kidnapper had such a bright future. He got 250 million just like that. Even if his father worked hard as a pirate, he wouldn't be able to get that much money in a year. If he kidnapped more people in the future, wouldn't he have an endless amount of money? When can I see Yao Yao and Shu? Peng Zhan sighed in relief when he heard that the kidnapper didn't intend to go back on his words. Since Mr. Chu is so straightforward, how can I disappoint you? I'll tell you the address and you can tell Lin Yi to pick them up, Zhang Yingjun said. But I hope Mr. Chu remembers my words. Don't call the police, or you'll have to bear the consequences. No problem, I just hope that my daughter and Shu are safe, Peng Zhan said solemnly. South Mirror Mountain, there are 2 cars at the foot of the mountain, a Mercedes-Benz 600 and a Toyota Previa. Just get someone to follow the road in front of the 2 cars, Zhang Yingjun said. Okay, I'll remember it. Peng Zhan knew about South Mirror Mountain, but he didn't expect the kidnapper to bring his daughter to such a desolate place. It wouldn't be easy to find them with just the police force. Zhang Yingjun didn't say anything else and hung up the phone. He was waiting for Lin Yi to come and give Lin Yi a fatal blow, making him stay in South Mirror Mountain forever. He got the money, but the hatred between Zhen Yingjun and Lin Yi hadn't been resolved yet. How much did this guy make him suffer? He must make him pay back 10 times, 100 times. South Mirror Mountain, Lin Yi, they specifically asked you to bring Yao Yao and Shu back. Peng Zhan hesitated and said to Lin Yi, I feel like they're plotting something. Otherwise, why didn't they just release Yao Yao and Shu directly? Why did they ask you to go? Maybe they want to deal with me. Lin Yi said indifferently. If I'm not wrong, I already know who did this. Who? Peng Zhan froze and asked. Zhen Yingjun. Lin Yi said. It can't be House Yu. From what I can see, it can only be House Zhen. House Zhen? House Zhen of Donghai? Zhen Dazhou? Since when did you guys offend someone like that? Peng Zhan paused. He didn't have any interactions with Zhen Dazhou, let alone any grudges. Lin Yi briefly told Peng Zhan about what happened in the billiard room that day, and how Zhen Yingjun lusted after Meng Yao and Yushu, as well as how Zhen Yingjun punished him after they left. Peng Zhan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He didn't blame Lin Yi because, strictly speaking, it was Yushu's fault and it had nothing to do with Lin Yi. Lin Yi, you're saying that other than money, they also want to deal with you? Peng Zhan thought for a while and said seriously. That should be the case. Although Shu asked me to do it, I'm the one who carried it out. Zhen Yingjun might hate me to the core. That master is probably waiting for me on the mountain. Lin Yi shrugged. It's far from the city, no one will notice if something happens there. It's a good place to kill. Chapter 885. Moving separately, this was obviously a trap. Since they saw through it, how could they go in? Uncle Chu, you're thinking the wrong way. I mean, there's no one there, it's perfect for me to kill them. Lin Yi smiled and said casually. Oh, you're confident? Peng Zhan paused after hearing Lin Yi's words. Yes, Lin Yi nodded and said confidently. In fact, he didn't. However, he couldn't ignore Meng Yao and Yushu. He only said that to reassure Peng Zhan. Lin Yi could only take it one step at a time. There was no one in Songshan who could help him, and the enemy had masters. Lin Yi could only face them alone. That's good. Peng Zhan didn't suspect anything. Seeing Lin Yi's confidence, he finally relaxed. I was worried that you wouldn't be able to handle it. I'm relieved now. Haha, time is of the essence. Uncle Chu, I'll leave first. Lin Yi didn't say much and walked towards the door. Woof woof. General Weiwu barked twice behind Lin Yi. Lin Yi's footsteps paused for a moment. He smiled and waved at General Weiwu. Come with me. Wasn't this a ready-made helper? Who would have thought that a dog was a golden-class dog? It was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Even if Lin Yi brought a dog to Nanjingzi Mountain, he didn't go against Zhen Yingjuan's suggestion. Only Lin Yi could go alone. Because the other person wasn't a human, but a dog. General Weiwu wagged its tail excitedly and followed Lin Yi. Peng Zhan naturally didn't know that General Weiwu had turned into a golden-class dog. He thought that Lin Yi brought General Weiwu with him to make it easier for him to find Meng Yao. Just like last time at Mount Shuangyan. Lin Yi brought General Weiwu with him to track Meng Yao's scent. Lin Yi got on Yushu's yellow beetle and set the GPS to Nanjingzi Mountain. The man and dog made their way there. On Lingshan's side, with Lin Yi's rejection, she naturally couldn't do anything. The other party was obviously a master, and she didn't know if she'd be helping or causing trouble. Since Lin Yi said he didn't need her, she could only wait anxiously in the police station. Fortunately, Peng Zhan hadn't pressured the police through anyone, and there was no news of him at all after he returned. South Mirror Z Mountain. This was the first time Lin Yi came to this place. He didn't know there was such a mountain near Songshan. The foot of the mountain was very desolate. There were no houses and no buildings. There were only some fire prevention slogans and warning signs that it was dangerous to go up the mountain. Not far from the mountain road, 2 cars stopped. It was the 2 cars that Zhen Yingjun mentioned. Lin Yi got off the car and patted General Weiwu's head. We'll split up later and act according to the situation, understand? After General Weiwu leveled up, it understood human nature better. It nodded, but Lin Yi wasn't sure if it really understood. Before it leveled up, Lin Yi already felt that this dog wasn't simple. It wasn't a normal dog, and now he felt that this dog's IQ was even higher than before. The steep mountain road was nothing to Lin Yi, let alone General Weiwu. It didn't even walk on the mountain road. Instead, It jumped around the trees and rocks on the side of the road and disappeared quickly. Lin Yi arrived at the top of the mountain and saw a few people in the open space at the top of the mountain. One of them was Zheng Jun. Beside him was a middle-aged man in a white robe. He was tall and strong like a pillar. Behind Zheng Jun were two bodyguards in black. On the left and right of the bodyguards were Meng Yao and Yushu. Both of their hands and feet were tied up. However, Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the two of them weren't hurt. Lin Yi, you're finally here. Wahahaha. Zheng Jun wasn't an idiot. He had men lying in ambush at the foot of the mountain to see if Lin Yi came alone. He was afraid that Lin Yi would bring a team of police with him. That would be troublesome. Although Zheng Jun was arrogant and had masters around him, he couldn't let his men have a gunfight with the police, could he? Wasn't that asking for death? If that happened, he would have to give up on killing Lin Yi and kill Meng Yao and Yushu to vent his anger. At the back of the mountain, Zheng Jun had already prepared a helicopter. Even if the police surrounded the mountain, he could still escape. The police wouldn't think that he had a helicopter as a backup. By the time the police called for backup, he would be long gone. Zheng Dazhou's men were in the pirate business. How could they not have a helicopter as an escape tool? Zheng Jun had all the necessary equipment, and that was the reason why he dared to wait for Lin Yi here. However, when Zheng Jun received a call from his men at the foot of the mountain, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like he was too careful. Lin Yi came alone without any backup or police. As for the dog beside Lin Yi, Zheng Jun automatically filtered it out. It was just a dog, what was there to worry about? Hey, it's really you, Zheng Jun. Lin Yi shrugged. It seemed like he was right. Things weren't as simple as he thought. His coming here was probably part of Zheng Jun's plan. Therefore, Lin Yi entered a state of alertness. Oh, you're pretty smart. You guessed it was me? Zheng Jun paused for a moment before laughing out loud. Ha 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 ha, since you guessed it was me, how dare you come alone? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? You're really stupid. It was no wonder that Zheng Jun was so happy. From his point of view, Lin Yi was an idiot. Since he guessed that he kidnapped Meng Yao and Yushu, he still dared to come and pick up the hostages, especially alone. If he wasn't an idiot, then he was too arrogant. Are you saying that I'm smart or stupid? Are you contradicting yourself? Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Are you stupid or am I stupid? Meng Yao and Yushu were both here. Lin Yi made up his mind and started to think of a plan. Ever since he came to the top of the mountain, the Jade had been warning him non-stop. This meant that the mountain was full of danger, and Lin Yi didn't know where the danger was. Chapter 886. A sudden turn of events. Don't be so quick with your words. Zheng Jun sneered. Lin Yi, I will return the humiliation you made me suffer 10 times, 100 times more. As he finished speaking, Zheng Jun made a hand gesture, and the warning signal on Lin Yi's chest suddenly became urgent. This position was dangerous and Lin Yi dodged instinctively. A bullet brushed past him. It was a gun with a silencer. The bullet surprised Lin Yi. He didn't think that Zheng Jun would use a gun against him. Lin Yi guessed that Zheng Jun wanted to rely on the master to kill him. However, a few bullets couldn't hurt Lin Yi at all. Since Lin Yi was on guard, he wouldn't let the bullets hit him. One bullet missed, and following that, a series of bang, bang, bang sounded. It was like a bamboo tube popping beans. Countless bullets flew towards Lin Yi's direction. So many people? Lin Yi didn't think that Zheng Jun would have so many people waiting for him with guns. He was definitely a strong opponent. Although Zheng Jun looked arrogant, he was different from Zhong Pingliang and Zhao Qibing. He knew how to use a sea of guns. If Lin Yi didn't break through to Mystic class, and was still in the late phase of Golden class, he wouldn't be able to dodge so many bullets. However, Lin Yi had already advanced to Mystic class and relied on his agile skills and unique footwork from when he was an assassin. He barely dodged the first round of bullets. Continue shooting. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Shoot him to death. Zheng Jun saw that Lin Yi narrowly dodged a round of bullets and he was instantly enraged. You bunch of idiots, you can't even kill one person with so many guns. Zheng Jun was quite a distance away from Lin Yi and he wasn't worried that Lin Yi would rush over, so he spoke without restraint. After all, even if Lin Yi rushed over, he still had Ma Zhu with him. Bang, bang, bang. The dull gunshot sounded again, but this time, there was an accident. Ouch! Accompanied by the muffled sound of the bullets, a scream was suddenly heard. A gunman who had been lying in ambush instantly flew out from behind the rock he was hiding in and fell to the ground. His body twitched twice, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Then he could no longer move. The sudden turn of events left everyone dumbfounded for a moment. Zhang Yingjun was dumbfounded, Ma Zhu was dumbfounded, and the two bodyguards were dumbfounded. The snipers lying in ambush were also dumbfounded. They didn't expect their partner who was lying in ambush to suddenly fly into the air. With a swoosh, he flew out from behind the rock as if there was a spring under his butt and fell to the ground. No one knew if he was dead or alive. However, just as they were wondering what was going on, an accident happened again. Ouch! Another scream. Another gunman who was lying in ambush completed his dream of pretending to be a Superman. With a swoosh, he flew out and fell to the ground. This time he didn't even twitch and fainted. No one knew if he was dead or alive. What's going on? What's going on? Lin Yi, did you bring someone? Zhang Yingjuan's face instantly showed vigilance. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that an accident happened, and this accident must have something to do with Lin Yi. I didn't. Lin Yi shook his head. I really didn't bring anyone. You told me to come alone, so I came alone. This. Zhang Yingjun heard Lin Yi's confidence and was taken aback. It wasn't that he didn't believe Lin Yi. After all, it didn't matter if Lin Yi admitted that he brought someone else or not. Both parties had already started fighting and Lin Yi had no reason to lie to him. However, Lin Yi said that he didn't bring anyone. This made Zhang Yingjun confused. Just as Zhang Yingjun was puzzled, another gun squad member who was lying in ambush turned into a flying man and flew out with a whoosh, falling to the ground like a corpse. The enemy has helpers. They don't seem to be human. Ma Zhu frowned as he said word by word. He was a master of physical attacks and defense, but his eyesight wasn't good. He only made his judgment based on the current signs. Young Master Jun, why don't we retreat a little? It's a little dangerous here. A bodyguard beside Zhang Yingjun suggested carefully. Okay. Zhang Yingjun was a little scared and didn't dare to show off anymore. He retreated behind Meng Yao and Yushu, using them as his shield. Meng Yao and Yushu were actually very excited when they saw Lin Yi coming to save them. Although Meng Yao felt that it was dangerous for Lin Yi to come here, she suddenly felt relieved when she saw Lin Yi. That feeling was as if she found someone she could rely on. She was no longer afraid and nervous. It was a good and warm feeling. However, Meng Yao and Yushu didn't know that Zhang Yingjun had a gunman lying in ambush nearby. They were brought out from the cave before Lin Yi came. So when they heard the gunshots, they were shocked. They even forgot to scream and forgot that they were in danger. They looked at Lin Yi nervously. They wanted Lin Yi to be careful, but they were afraid that Lin Yi would be distracted, so they chose to stay silent. When they saw that Lin Yi successfully dodged the bullets, Meng Yao and Yushu heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Lin Yi was quite powerful. Zhang Yingjun thought that he could kill Lin Yi with a gun? It was impossible. Then Meng Yao and Yushu saw Zhang Yingjuan's men flying out from their hiding places one by one and falling to the ground. They were as surprised as Zhang Yingjun, but a strange light flashed across Meng Yao's eyes. Shu, it looks like General Wei Wu? Meng Yao whispered to Yushu with uncertainty. Oh. Yushu heard Meng Yao's words and rubbed her eyes in disbelief. What the hell? You're influenced by the company you keep. General Wei Wu has been with Shield Bro for a long time, and has become so fierce. He's almost like a shield dog. Chapter 887. The General is powerful whoosh. Another member of the firearm team flew out, and fell to the ground dead. The situation was too horrifying. There was no warning at all. One by one, the members of the firearm team died, and it finally ignited their fear. They were a group of pirates who lived on the edge of a knife, and they were in the business of putting their lives on the line. They weren't afraid of death, but they were afraid of dying for no reason. What was going on? Lin Yi was still standing there without moving, and a few of his men had died. Therefore, the firearm team went crazy and started shooting at Lin Yi. They thought that it was Lin Yi's doing, and as long as they killed Lin Yi, everything would be solved. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots sounded everywhere. But there were still people who flew out from their hiding spots and died. Wah! Shoot him! Beat him to death! Zheng Yingjun roared in anger. What the hell is this? Lin Yi, what the hell did you do? Lin Yi's lips curved into a cold smile. Firearm team? Just wait for your death. Since you're lying in ambush here, you should be prepared to die. However, although Lin Yi was disdainful of the firearm team, he didn't let his guard down. These people had gone crazy and started shooting randomly. Some of them were afraid that the curse of death would find them, so they started shooting everywhere. As he dodged the bullets, he moved closer to Meng Yao and Yushu as fast as he could. He was afraid that these people would hurt the two girls in their frenzy. I'll kill you. Zhang Wushan was a small leader in the firearm team, but he was on the verge of a mental breakdown. He didn't know what to do as he watched his comrades die one by one, especially when his brother, Zhang Wuyu, fell to the ground and died. Zhang Wushan was completely insane. He didn't care about hiding anymore and jumped out from his hiding spot. He held his gun and started shooting randomly. He lost his mind and couldn't differentiate between friend and foe. He even shot at Zheng Yingjun's direction. Zheng Yingjun was shocked and quickly hid behind Meng Yao and Yushu. As Zhang Wushan's gun sounded, Lin Yi frowned. He didn't care about anything else and ran towards Meng Yao and Yushu. This was because Zhang Wushan's shot was aimed at Meng Yao's direction. With his current shooting angle, he would definitely hit the miss if there were no accidents. Lin Yi didn't have time to warn Meng Yao as her hands and feet were tied up. It was impossible for her to run away. Lin Yi gritted his teeth and jumped in front of Meng Yao. At the same time, a bullet pierced into Lin Yi's thigh. Damn. Lin Yi sweated. Why was it still this part? Last time in the bank, he was shot in the thigh and Lin Yi was very embarrassed when he went to the hospital to get the bullet removed. He didn't expect it to be in the same position again. Ah! Meng Yao screamed. She also realized that Lin Yi was shot. He took a bullet for her? Last time in the bank, it was the same Lin Yi who was shot next to the miss, but Meng Yao didn't feel anything special at that time. But now, why did her heart hurt so much? Meng Yao felt as if the bullet had hit her heart, and it was a heart-wrenching feeling. Lin Yi, how are you? Meng Yao wanted to touch Lin Yi's injury, but her hands and feet were tied and she couldn't move. It's so touching, Yao Yao sis, Shield Bro took a bullet for you. You have to repay him with your body when you go back. Yushu sighed. Repay him with my body. Don't talk nonsense at a time like this. Didn't you see that Lin Yi was shot? Meng Yao didn't know whether to laugh or cry after hearing Yushu's words. She didn't know if it was because she was avoiding the question, or because she was worried about Lin Yi's injury. Either way, she didn't want to talk about repaying him with her body. But Meng Yao was thinking, would she do it if Lin Yi really asked her to repay him with her body? Would she? It seemed like she would. How was that possible? Oh, Shield Bro is a doctor, it's not a big deal. Yushu was calm in the face of danger. She saw that Lin Yi was still standing and there was nothing wrong with Lin Yi. He didn't even have a muscle after being shot. She knew that Lin Yi would be fine. Lin Yi was indeed fine. It was just a bullet. Yushu was right. Lin Yi was a doctor after all. He'd chosen the spot the moment he'd blocked the bullet, avoiding bones and arteries, so the bullet was stuck in the muscle. It didn't matter if he didn't take it out for now. Otherwise, Lin Yi wouldn't have followed the robbers to the car and snatched their gun when he was shot. However, Lin Yi didn't have the time to think about his injury. He shook his right hand and a silver needle appeared between his fingers. Zhang Wushan was crazy and Lin Yi had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Lin Yi didn't expect Zheng Yingjun's men to be so mentally weak. They were already scared out of their wits? Actually, it wasn't that the firearms team's mental fortitude was bad. They had been killing people at sea all day, and their guts had long been trained to be bigger than a basketball. It was just that today's situation was too strange. They weren't afraid of being hacked to death with a knife, and they weren't afraid of being shot in the head. But this kind of flying man style of death was the first time they had seen it. It was too scary. Lin Yi wanted to kill Zhang Wushan, but before he could shoot out the silver needle, General Wei Wu jumped out and agilely jumped behind Zhang Wushan. Its forelegs stamped on Zhang Wushan's back, and Zhang Wushan was sent flying like his comrade. He fell to the ground and died on the spot. Yao Yao sis, General Wei Wu is so awesome. Yushu knew that General Wei Wu was the one who killed the firearms team, But she was still shocked when she saw it with her own eyes. Mingyao widened her eyes and looked at the General Weiwu she raised for 10 years. How could it be like this? Why didn't she realize that General Weiwu had such a powerful side? It seemed like it was different after Lin Yi healed it last time. Zhen Yingjun finally understood how his men died. They were kicked to death by a dog? Wasn't this world too crazy? Chapter 888. Your opponent is Mima Zhu had been a famous master for a long time, but he had never heard of a dog that could cultivate, let alone reach the golden class. Was this still a dog? The rest of the members finally knew what attacked them. They all turned their guns from Lin Yi to General Weiwu, but General Weiwu's target was smaller than Lin Yi. It jumped left and right to the back of another member. In the end, before the flintlock member could react, he was tragically shot dead by his comrades' random shots. Before he died, he didn't understand why he wasn't kicked to death by a dog, but was killed by his comrade. Did they treat him as a dog? General Weiwu did the same thing, jumping left and right nimbly. Thus, a few more members of the firearm squad died under the muzzle of their comrades, and the few that survived were kicked to death by General Weiwu. Master Ma, kill that dog. Kill it now. Zhen Yingjun screamed in horror. He didn't expect a dog to be so powerful that it could kill people with a kick. Ma Zhu nodded and took a step forward, ready to kill General Weiwu. However, Lin Yi blocked in front of Ma Zhu. Your opponent is me. Lin Yi looked at Ma Zhu and said calmly. He couldn't see through Ma Zhu's strength. A physical master's strength wasn't determined by the amount of energy they had. They increased their level through training their body, so Lin Yi couldn't know how strong his body was. Move, you are not my opponent. Ma Zhu glanced at Lin Yi and said in disdain. Why don't we try and find out? Lin Yi smiled. Perhaps you are right. I am not your opponent, but when I fight a monster above my level, I can occasionally get a critical hit. What critical hit? Ma Zhu obviously didn't understand Lin Yi's words. Since you want to die first, then I will fulfill your wish. Ma Zhu was annoyed. He knew that the members of the firearms team were equally important to his boss. Although they worked for House Zhen, most of the money they earned flowed into his boss's pocket every year. Therefore, Ma Zhu wanted to kill General Weiwu first to stop it from killing people, but Lin Yi didn't give him the chance. Anger surged in Ma Zhu's heart, but he also knew that it was impossible to save the members of the firearms team. Ma Zhu stared at Lin Yi, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Since he couldn't save the firearms team, then he would vent his anger on Lin Yi's life. In an instant, Ma Zhu's aura was raised to the extreme, but a physical master's aura was much weaker than a spiritual master's. The energy on Lin Yi's body was released at this moment as well. The aura of a mystic early phase peak was even stronger than Ma Zhu, who was a mystic mid-phase peak physical master. Peak of the middle phase of the mystic division? Lin Yi knew that he couldn't pretend to be weak today. His opponent's strength was one level higher than his. How could he pretend to be weak? Although spiritual masters were always stronger than physical masters of the same level, that was only limited to the same level. Even if a spiritual master of the peak of the early phase of the mystic division fought against a physical master of the middle phase of the mystic division, it would still be very difficult. But if a spiritual master of the peak of the early phase of the mystic division fought against a physical master of the middle phase of the mystic division, then the chance of winning would be even lower. This was the situation that Lin Yi was in right now. Lin Yi had never met a master who was so much stronger than him. His face was very serious as he stared at Ma Zhu. He was already in battle mode. Peak of the early phase of the mystic division? Ma Zhu saw Lin Yi's strength and was surprised. Although you're stronger than Li Fu, that old thing, it's useless. Today you're dead. As he spoke, Ma Zhu moved. Both his feet stomped on the ground, and both his palms pressed towards Lin Yi's chest. He trained his defense first and then his attack, so he basically didn't have any moves to speak of. It was a completely head-on stance, and all the weak points on his body were exposed, but he didn't care at all. Lin Yi's face darkened. He didn't dare to take a palm from a physical master of the peak of the middle phase of the mystic division. Ma Zhu's stance also made Lin Yi confused. What kind of fighting style was this? It was a stance that didn't care about his life. He only cared about attacking and didn't even know how to protect his acupuncture points. Wasn't he afraid that he would ambush him? But before Lin Yi figured out Ma Zhu's fighting style, he didn't dare to make any moves. As Ma Zhu's palms approached, Lin Yi quickly retreated and barely dodged Ma Zhu's attack. Coward! Ma Zhu saw that Lin Yi actually dodged and ran, and he couldn't help but sneer. His tall figure suddenly turned into a black shadow again, and rushed towards Lin Yi. As expected of a physical master of the peak of the middle phase of the Mystic Division. Before Ma Zhu's figure even arrived, the strong wind that he brought up already made Lin Yi's face hurt. Lin Yi frowned. Just dodging wasn't a solution, but Lin Yi didn't dare to fight Ma Zhu head-on. Ma Zhu's strength had already been proven by Faubert. Lin Yi's brain was working quickly to think of a countermeasure. Go to hell. Ma Zhu saw that Lin Yi kept retreating, and he felt great. He roared, turned his palms into fists and punched towards Lin Yi again. He couldn't dodge anymore. Lin Yi knew that dodging wouldn't solve the problem. Therefore this time Lin Yi didn't dodge. Instead he stood where he was, as if waiting for Ma Zhu to take his punch. Ma Zhu sneered, as if he could already see Lin Yi being beaten into a pile of mush by him. I'm not afraid of you not attacking, I'm afraid that you'll keep dodging. Ma Zhu knew his own strength. He wasn't afraid that Lin Yi would ambush him, but he was afraid that Lin Yi would play hide and seek with him. He was already a practitioner of the 8th level of the Golden Shield, and his bones were as hard as steel. Normal methods couldn't do anything to him, unless he could find his weak spot and break it. However, how could a normal person find his weak spot? Even his boss didn't know about Ma Zhu's weak spot, let alone Lin Yi. Ma Zhu didn't dare to be careless against a master of a higher level. But against an opponent like Lin Yi who was one level lower than him, Ma Zhu wasn't afraid at all. It didn't matter if it was an internal style or an external style. As long as the opponent wasn't strong to a certain extent, it wouldn't be able to cause any damage to Ma Zhu's body. Of course Lin Yi didn't know that Ma Zhu was a practitioner of the Golden Shield. If he knew, he wouldn't have taken the risk. Chapter 889. Between a rock and a hard place, Ma Zhu was strong, but he wasn't fast enough. This was the conclusion that Lin Yi came to after observing Ma Zhu's 2 attacks. Qinggong was one of Lin Yi's strengths, so Lin Yi decided to use a sneak attack to get rid of Ma Zhu. Fight head-on? That was just to trick Ma Zhu. If he really fought head-on with Ma Zhu, then Lin Yi would be looking for death. Die. Ma Zhu was proud of himself and thought that his fist was about to land on Lin Yi, but he suddenly realized that Lin Yi had disappeared. Ma Zhu was stunned. Huh? Where is he? Here. Lin Yi's words were followed by a loud bang. Lin Yi's fists landed on Ma Zhu's back. Lin Yi used all his strength in these 2 punches. He didn't hold back his strength at all. His goal was to heavily injure Ma Zhu. If Ma Zhu was an Earth-class master, then Lin Yi's attack would at most cause a light injury. But the 2 of them were only 1 level apart. Although Lin Yi couldn't kill Ma Zhu with all his strength, he would probably injure him badly. This was Lin Yi's strategy. He would ambush Ma Zhu a few more times, and he wouldn't believe that he couldn't kill him. Although Ma Zhu was strong, wouldn't it be fine as long as he didn't fight head-on with him? Master once said that if the enemy was stronger than you, then you should avoid them and ambush them when they least expect it. The rules of the martial world were all nonsense to an assassin. The ultimate goal of an assassin was to kill the enemy, not to talk about the rules of the martial world. Lin Yi's fists landed heavily on Ma Zhu's back, but Lin Yi's face turned extremely ugly at this moment, because Lin Yi felt that his fists seemed to have hit an iron plate, as if he wasn't hitting a human body. Moreover, the recoil from the iron plate was enough to make Lin Yi choke. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Lin Yi's mouth. Obviously, a portion of the force from the previous attack had rebounded back to his body. However, even though he was surprised, Lin Yi's feet didn't stop. After the attack, Lin Yi quickly retreated. As expected, just as Lin Yi dodged, Ma Zhu swung his fist and turned around, but he missed. Kid, you're pretty fast, ha 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 ha. Ma Zhu laughed. How is it? You must be feeling great right now, right? TSK, you even vomited blood. Looks like your punch was quite powerful. But you didn't expect that you would suffer the consequences of your own actions, right? Ha 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 ha. Lin Yi looked at Ma Zhu in shock and frowned in disbelief. At this moment, Ma Zhu didn't look like he was injured at all. Looking at him, it was as if the 2 punches weren't aimed at him. You're not injured? Lin Yi took a deep breath and stabilized his body. He smiled bitterly in his heart. He went for wool and came home shorn. Most of the force that hit Ma Zhu returned to his own body. There's no harm in telling you. My golden bell shield is already at level 8. Ma Zhu looked at Lin Yi mockingly. I'm not afraid of you hitting me. If I hit you, you'll definitely die. How is it? Fun, right? Wahahaha. What can you do? Golden bell shield level 8. No wonder. Lin Yi came to a realization. No wonder Ma Zhu was fine after he hit him, and he was the one who got hurt. He was a practitioner of Golden Bell Shield. There weren't many practitioners like him because it was a tough process before mastering Golden Bell Shield. The practitioner's mind and bones had to be exhausted, and he had to suffer a lot of pain. If he didn't have a strong mind, he wouldn't be able to master Golden Bell Shield. Zheng Yingjun saw Lin Yi retreating and vomiting blood. He immediately cheered happily. Master Ma is awesome. Master Ma is awesome. Kill this kid. Ming Yao and Yushu, on the other hand, held their breaths. In their hearts, Lin Yi was invincible, but Lin Yi actually vomited blood. And it was when Lin Yi was attacking someone. He wasn't even attacked. That's a little strange. However, although Ming Yao and Yushu found it strange, they knew that Ma Zhu was definitely stronger than Lin Yi, because Ma Zhu didn't seem to be injured at all. Lin Yi. Ming Yao saw that Lin Yi was injured and she couldn't bear to see him injured. There was a gunshot wound on his leg. Ming Yao knew that if Lin Yi didn't come to save her, he wouldn't be injured and wouldn't need to fight with Ma Zhu. Why did he protect her so much? Was it because of the 30,000 yuan salary? He didn't have to do this. Ha! Lin Yi smiled at the miss and wiped the blood on the corner of his mouth. Wait for me to kill him. Then I'll bring you home. In an instant, Ming Yao's eyes were wet and tears flowed out uncontrollably. He was always so nice to her. And Ming Yao nodded hard. Let's go home together. Kill me? That's ridiculous. Ma Zhu snorted at Lin Yi's words. I'll stand here and let you hit me. Can you kill me? Lin Yi looked at Ma Zhu alertly and thought of a countermeasure in his mind. It could be said that Ma Zhu was the strongest opponent Lin Yi met after he came to Songshan. Not only was he one level higher than him, he also practiced the Golden Shield. In other words, all attacks were useless against him. Unless Lin Yi was stronger than Ma Zhu, he wouldn't be his opponent at all. What should he do? Lin Yi fell into a dilemma. In the past, Lin Yi followed the principle of running away if he couldn't win. He didn't have any psychological burden because his master once said, where there's life, there's hope. However, Lin Yi couldn't leave today. If he left, what about the miss and Shu? Could Lin Yi leave them alone? Lin Yi couldn't. Lin Yi believed that if he left, with Ma Zhu's arrogant personality, he wouldn't let Ming Yao and Yushu go. And he didn't know what Zheng Yingjun would do. Lin Yi silently chanted the art of dragon mastery in his mind to heal his internal injuries. However, because he didn't enter the jade space, the effect was minimal. What? You don't want to fight? If you don't want to, I'll fight you. Ma Zhu laughed and attacked Lin Yi again. Before Ma Zhu could get close to him, Lin Yi moved away agilely again. However, his eyes were filled with anxiety. He couldn't go on like this. He couldn't keep fighting Ma Zhu like this, could he? Chapter 890. He was poisoned. It was impossible for Ma Zhu to kill him, but it was even more impossible for him to defeat Ma Zhu. Lin Yi didn't even dare to attack Ma Zhu now. It would be a waste of effort if he attacked him, and it would reflect back to him. Ma Zhu saw that Lin Yi was dodging here and there, but he wasn't angry at all. He only laughed coldly, jumping up and down. What's the difference between you and that dog? If you have the guts, then keep jumping. On the other side, General Wei Wu had successfully killed all the members of the firearm team. He wagged his tail and ran over, wanting to help Lin Yi. Go protect Yao Yao and Shu. You can't handle this place, Lin Yi ordered General Wei Wu. In this place, even Lin Yi couldn't do anything to Ma Zhu, let alone General Wei Wu. General Wei Wu heard Lin Yi's words and quickly came to Ming Yao and Yushu's side. He used his teeth to bite off the ropes on them. Lin Yi looked at Ming Yao and Yushu. He was relieved after seeing that the ropes on them were untied. While he was dodging Ma Zhu, he shouted to Ming Yao. Yao Yao, leave with Shu and General Wei Wu first. But, Lin Yi, you. Ming Yao was worried about Lin Yi. How could she leave him alone and leave by herself? You leave first. If you leave, I can run away anytime. Linny was panicking. After fighting with Maju for so long, he still couldn't do anything. Hee, they dare? Maju said confidently. If they dare to leave, I'll kill them first. You can dodge my attacks, but what about them? Ha 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 ha. Linny frowned after hearing Maju's words. He could only give up on the idea of letting Mengyao leave first. It seemed like Maju wasn't an idiot. He knew that after Mengyao and Yushu left, there was no need for him to fight anymore. He would only stay here if Mengyao and Yushu were here. However, there was nothing Linny could do. Maju was right. He could totally leave and kill Mengyao and Yushu right now because he wasn't afraid of his ambush. Linny couldn't do anything to him at all. We'll wait for you. We'll go home together. Mengyao heard Maju's words and let out a sigh of relief. She didn't want to leave first. Now that she couldn't leave, she felt relieved. Come on, shield bro. Beat the crap out of this idiot. Yushu joined in. Maju snorted coldly, but he didn't want to argue with the two little girls. What he wanted to do now was to kill Lin Yi. Brat, let's see if you will die this time. Lin dodged Maju's attack again, but it was extremely dangerous. He was almost hit by Maju's attack. What was going on? Why did his reaction become so slow? Could it be that his stamina was depleted? That was impossible. How was this even possible? He wouldn't be depleted even after running for tens of thousands of meters. He only dodged a few attacks from Maju. How could he be depleted? Lin Yi's left shoulder was scratched by Maju's palm, and a piercing pain immediately spread throughout Lin Yi's entire shoulder. Instantly, Lin Yi saw his shoulder swollen. If he wasn't wrong, his bones had been fractured by Maju. Lin Yi looked at Maju in shock. What was going on? Why did his movement become so slow? He was actually hit by Maju. What was going on? How is it? It feels good, right? It's just that I didn't hit your vital parts. But it's okay, I have patience. You will slowly die from my torture. Maju looked at Lin Yi's swollen shoulder and revealed a sinister smile. Feels good, doesn't it? Lin Yi frowned. He felt that his steps were getting heavier and heavier. Lin Yi was always confident in his qinggong and stamina. But now, not only did his qinggong deteriorate, even his stamina was showing signs of exhaustion. Lin Yi knew something was wrong. If he continued like this, he would definitely die. He quickly started channeling the art of dragon mastery, checking his injuries. Wait. Suddenly, Lin Yi found something wrong with his body. Poison. He was poisoned. Lin Yi's face suddenly turned very bad. He thought of a possibility. The bullets were poisoned. Poison? Maju was slightly stunned. Obviously he didn't know. Ha 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 ha. Zhang Yingjun suddenly laughed after hearing Lin Yi's words. He laughed happily. I thought you weren't afraid of poison. It didn't happen for so long, and I thought this poison was useless to cultivators like you. So it's just a delay. I was wondering why you became so stupid. It's because the poison is acting up. Wahahaha. It's really poisonous. Lin Yi gritted his teeth and breathed heavily. He didn't expect Zhang Yingjun to be so cunning and smeared poison on the bullets. Master Ma, the poison is acting up. Kill him now. Zhang Yingjun didn't think there was anything wrong with what he did. From his point of view, killing Lin Yi was the most important goal. Moreover, he felt that he was extremely wise at this moment. If Lin Yi wasn't poisoned, Maju wouldn't be able to do anything to him if he jumped up and down. Although Maju was strong, Lin Yi's qinggong was good and he couldn't do anything to Lin Yi at the moment. But now that Lin Yi was poisoned, his movements had slowed down. Lin Yi's death, from his point of view, was only a matter of time before he died. Maju nodded. Although he despised the poisoning, it was annoying that the kid jumped around in front of him and dodged every attack. Therefore, it was a good thing that Lin Yi was poisoned. Was he going to die here today? Lin Yi gritted his teeth as he looked at the miss, then at Yushu. If he ran now, Lin Yi believed that Maju wouldn't be able to catch up with him. But what about Miss? But if he didn't leave, would Maju let Miss go after he killed him? He probably would, right? Otherwise, if Zhang Yingjun wanted to kill Mengyao and Yushu, they would already be dead bodies before he arrived. But Zhang Yingjun didn't do that, which meant that he only wanted to kill him and not Mengyao and Yushu. If he died, it would cause far less trouble than Mengyao and Yushu. From Zheningjuan's point of view, he was only Meng Yao and Yushu's follower. It didn't matter if a follower died, but if Peng Zhan's daughter died, it would be a big deal. With that thought, Lin Yi calmed down. Chapter 891. Learn to take care of yourself. My golden bell shield is flawless, unless your level is higher than mine. You're already at the peak of the early phase of mystic division at such a young age. TSK, what a genius. Maybe you can surpass me in a few years, but I'm afraid you won't be able to see that day. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Higher level. Higher. Suddenly, a possibility flashed across Lin Yi's mind. Wait. Lin Yi suddenly smiled. He looked at Ma Zhu with a weird smile. He couldn't leave today, so even if he were to die, he would drag someone down with him. Yaoshu. Lin Yi turned around and looked at Meng Yao and Yushu. Meng Yao and Yushu also noticed that Lin Yi's smile was weird and didn't know what Lin Yi wanted to do. You have to learn to take care of yourself in the future. Lin Yi smiled. Meng Yao and Yushu paused, not understanding why Lin Yi would say something like that at a time like this. However, Lin Yi didn't explain. In the next moment, Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Ma Zhu. What a joke. He had been looking for Ma Zhu's weakness but couldn't find it. He didn't expect Ma Zhu to expose his weakness in the end. What are you laughing at? Ma Zhu froze. Lin Yi's smile gave him goosebumps. Wahahaha, Master Ma, this brat was preparing for his death. Zhan Yingjun suddenly laughed. He was the first to understand what Lin Yi meant. Meng Yao and Yushu immediately understood after Zhan Yingjun reminded them. Was Lin Yi preparing for his death? Lin Yi, go. Don't care about us, go. Meng Yao shouted at Lin Yi crazily. However, Lin Yi turned a deaf ear to him. A strange smile hung on his face, and his hands were in an extremely strange position. Tears blurred Meng Yao's vision. She didn't expect Lin Yi to die for her and Shu. The young lady shouted at Lin Yi hoarsely. You idiot! I gave you 30,000 yuan, and you went to die. No wonder Zhen Yingjun called you an idiot, you big idiot. Yushu held Meng Yao's hand tightly, not saying a word. Although she was usually carefree, she was extremely anxious at this moment. Humph, it seems like you have some awareness. Ma Zhu laughed. Don't worry, go to hell. We won't touch those two little girls. We'll let them leave safely. Lin Yi didn't say anything. His hands were still in a very strange position. No one knew what he was doing. What? What do you mean by that? Do you still want to perform a heroic deed before you die? Ma Zhu looked at Lin Yi in confusion. His tone was filled with impatience. Lin Yi had worn out all his patience. He couldn't wait to kill Lin Yi in the next second. Even if I die, I want to die in a grand way. I'm going to attack. The smile on Lin Yi's face slowly disappeared as he walked towards Ma Zhu step by step. Attack? Haha, alright, since you want to attack, no problem. Ma Zhu wasn't afraid of Lin Yi. As a master of the 8th level of the Golden Shield, he didn't put Lin Yi in his eyes at all. Lin Yi's movements suddenly sped up. He rushed towards Ma Zhu, but his hands were still in the strange position. Ma Zhu's lips curved into a mocking smile. Have you played too much Street Fighter? But I have to say, your move before you die looks pretty grand. As he spoke, Ma Zhu swung his right fist, ready to take Lin Yi's strange move. Grand. Maybe. What's even more grand is yet to come. Lin Yi's lips curved into a determined smile. He suddenly put his hands together and pushed them out. It looked like a move from Street Fighter. Haha. Ma Zhu's fist was about to hit Lin Yi's palms. He was about to hit Lin Yi. However, at this moment, something happened. A loud boom sounded like a detonator exploding between Ma Zhu and Lin Yi. Along with the earth-shattering sound of thunder, a strong heat wave pushed Lin Yi away. The huge explosion reverberated in the valley. Zhen Yingjun was shocked, and Meng Yao and Yushu were also shocked, speechless. The heat wave from the explosion made Meng Yao and Yushu breathless even though they were far away. Zhen Yingjun was pushed to the ground by the heat wave. Although General Weiwu was in a better condition than the three of them, he still stared blankly at the direction of the explosion. At the place where Lin Yi and Ma Zhu stood, dust flew everywhere. The sky was filled with flying sand and stones. They couldn't see what happened. The destructive energy shook the entire mountain. No one knew what happened. Zhang Ningjun opened his mouth wide and stared at the place where the explosion happened. He hoped that it was the shock brought by Ma Zhu killing Lin Yi. However, Zhang Ningjun didn't know why, but he felt that something was wrong. He felt that there was something wrong with this. How could Ma Zhu cause such a huge commotion? But if it wasn't Ma Zhu, was it Lin Yi? That was even more impossible, right? Yao sis, where's Shield Bro? Will he be okay? Yushu stared at the scene of the explosion blankly. She sounded sad. Mingyao didn't say anything. She didn't know what kind of feeling she had in her heart. Did it happen? Did it finally happen? Did Lin Yi die with his opponent? That was the only thought in Mingyao's mind. Lin Yi's words seemed to be ringing in her ears, telling them to take care of themselves in the future. In the next moment, he disappeared? No. Mingyao couldn't accept the reality in front of her. Lin Yi couldn't die. However, at this moment, Mingyao lost her voice. She didn't know what to say, and she didn't know what to say. Things had exceeded her expectations. It was too much. She had never experienced a life and death parting like this. At this moment, her fragile heart was broken. The flying sand and pebbles that filled the sky finally dissipated slowly. The dust in the air also became lighter and lighter. Amidst the scattered pebbles, a figure stood upright. Although he was not tall, his entire body was emitting a formidable aura. His shirt had already been torn to shreds and his exposed upper body was covered with streaks of blood. It was a ghastly sight. It seemed like a gust of wind could blow him down, but when the wind blew, the figure still stood straight. Chapter 892. Energy Bomb. Ha! Mingyao looked at the messy figure and laughed. I knew this guy wouldn't die. He's just a liar. Oh Yarao sis, you don't mean what you said. You were so nervous just now. Yushu exposed Mingyao's lie. Mingyao glared at Yushu and ignored her. Zhang Ningjun was dumbfounded. Where was Ma Zhu? Where did Ma Zhu go? A master with golden bell shield at the peak of the middle phase of Mystic Division. How did he disappear all of a sudden? Zhang Ningjun widened his eyes and searched the area. However, other than Lin Yi, Ma Zhu was nowhere to be seen. After a while, another figure climbed up from the ruins. This person was Ma Zhu. However, Ma Zhu looked horrifying at this moment. Half of his arm was completely gone, and his ribs were completely caved in. It could be said that the right half of his body had become a pile of rotten meat. Even the right side of his face was no longer recognizable. If it wasn't for the fact that there was no one else here, no one would be able to recognize that this person was Ma Zhu. Fresh blood flowed out of his wound, and his white bones could be vaguely seen. What the hell? That's amazing. He's not dead even after being blown up like this? Yushu was surprised at Ma Zhu's tenacious vitality. Ma Zhu's eyes were filled with astonishment. He no longer had the arrogance from before. He couldn't believe that he was actually injured, and it was so serious. It was too miserable. How was this possible? He was a master with the 8th level of Golden Bell Shield, and Lin Yi was only a spiritual master at the peak of the early phase of Mystic Division. How could he hurt him? Ma Zhu could proudly say that normal bullets wouldn't be able to hit him, but now he was injured, and it was a very serious injury. The right half of his body was blown up. His right arm was gone and even his entire shoulder was gone. The right side of his face was a bloody mess and his right leg was only left with white bones. He was barely able to stand up now. Impossible. Impossible. This can't be real. You can't hurt me. Ma Zhu couldn't believe it. He really couldn't. Idiot. Lin Yi glanced at Ma Zhu indifferently. I already told you that I was going to use my ultimate skill, but you didn't dodge it. Do you think you have a lot of HP? Impossible. This is impossible. Ma Zhu was going crazy. He couldn't accept the reality in front of him. Although Lin Yi looked to be in a sorry state, although Lin Yi had a lot of wounds on his body, he didn't lose an arm or a leg. As for himself, Ma Zhu couldn't accept it. His Golden Bell Shield's 8 layers were all destroyed in an instant. His many years of cultivation and his childhood dreams were all shattered at this moment. The body of a physical master was as important as the meridians of an internal master. Once the body was heavily injured, even if it recovered, it would be impossible to regain its previous strength. Especially for someone like Ma Zhu, whose entire body was blown to pieces. His Golden Bell Shield was completely broken. Even if the body recovered, The newly grown flesh and skin would be no different from before. It would be no different from an ordinary person. Even if there was a little bit of golden bell shield left on the left side of his body, what use would it be? If he went out to fight, could he stop the enemy from attacking his right side? Linny didn't bother with Ma Zhu anymore. He had to scare Ma Zhu and Zhen Yingjun away as soon as possible. He knew his own strength. He was only able to stand up now with his last breath. His entire body was like a crossbow. The attack just now was the result of Lin Yi sucking out all the energy in his body, compressing it and releasing it in an instant. Lin Yi had tested this kind of energy bomb on Yukuan once, and it was quite effective. However, the amount of energy used to destroy Yukuan's meridians was far less than what he used today. This time it was Lin Yi's crazy and risky decision. He had no other choice but to do it. Ma Zhu was a practitioner of the Golden Bell Shield. No matter what kind of attack Lin Yi used, it was useless against him. Even sneak attacks and assassinations were useless because Ma Zhu wasn't afraid of being attacked at all. Just when Lin Yi was anxious and helpless after being poisoned, Ma Zhu exposed his weakness and said something. Perhaps Ma Zhu didn't think there was anything wrong with what he said, but it gave Lin Yi a huge inspiration. Ma Zhu said that the Golden Bell Shield was flawless unless Lin Yi's level was higher than his. From Ma Zhu's perspective, Lin Yi's strength couldn't be higher than his. If Lin Yi was, he would have won a long time ago. However, Lin Yi didn't think so. Although his strength wasn't as high as Ma Zhu's, after the energy was compressed, the power it produced was multiplied. Ma Zhu had the Golden Bell Shield to protect his body. Lin Yi couldn't use the energy to destroy Ma Zhu's internal organs and meridians like what he did to Yukuan. He could only use a bigger explosion of energy to destroy Ma Zhu's body. Lin Yi wasn't sure if this method would work, and he wasn't sure what kind of negative consequences it would bring to him. This was because even if he quickly retreated the moment he released the energy, the remaining energy from the explosion could still affect him. In order to injure Ma Zhu, Lin Yi had no choice but to use the last bit of energy in his body. With the thought of success or failure, he released the scariest energy bomb in history. Fortunately, he succeeded. Ma Zhu was crippled by the explosion. His Golden Bell Shield was directly destroyed by his own energy. However, even so, the defense of Ma Zhu's Golden Bell Shield still made Lin Yi speechless. Lin Yi knew clearly how powerful the energy bomb was. There was a deep pit in front of them. The cut was smooth and straight as if it was cut by a sharp sword. The rock was like that, but Ma Zhu was only injured and not dead. Lin Yi didn't know if Ma Zhu still had the ability to fight, but he knew that he didn't. If it wasn't for his strong willpower, he wouldn't be able to last until now, let alone stand up. However, he had to stand up and pretend that he wasn't injured. He had to scare Ma Zhu and Zhen Yingjun away. Otherwise he, Meng Yao, and Yushu would all be in danger. So Lin Yi ignored Ma Zhu and turned to Zhen Yingjun. He said coldly, "Now it's your turn." Chapter 893. How about juice? Don't come near me. Zhen Yingjun stepped back subconsciously. Suddenly, he saw Meng Yao and Yushu from the corner of his eyes. He quickly pulled out a gun from his waist and sprinted over, aiming at Meng Yao. "Don't come over. Surrender now or I'll kill her." Lin Yi was stunned. He didn't expect Zhen Yingjun to react so violently. He must be scared out of his wits. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. Did he overshoot himself? He wanted to scare Zhen Yingjun and ask him to leave with Ma Zhu so that he could find a place to heal himself. He didn't expect Zhen Yingjun to threaten Meng Yao with a gun instead. Bang! A muffled sound was followed by a heart-wrenching scream. It wasn't a gunshot, but the sound of bodies colliding. In the next moment, Zhen Yingjun's gun fell to the ground. He covered his crotch with both hands, his eyes popped out, and he panted heavily as he screamed in pain. "Yeah." Yushu made a V shape with her hand and clapped. "I'm so good. I kicked Zhen Yingjun into a real eunuch." Yushu used all her strength in her kick, and Zhen Yingjun was in a tragedy. He didn't expect a weak girl to attack him first. Wasn't she afraid that he would shoot? However, he was in so much pain that he couldn't ask the question. Meng Yao smiled, but she still felt that Yushu was too reckless. "Shu, aren't you afraid that he will shoot me? You are so brave. How are you going to be the mistress if I die?" "Oh Yarao sis, you finally decided to marry me?" Yushu said happily. "He can't kill you because he didn't turn on the safety. I observed him before I kicked him. How did you know? Mingyao was surprised. She didn't expect Shu to be so reckless. She did it after observing him carefully. My brother brought me to the army to play with guns. Yushu picked up Zheng Ningjuan's gun on the ground. Look, Yao sis, the safety is here. Don't move, the gun might go off by accident. Mingyao said worriedly to Yushu. Throw it away. Yushu pulled the trigger just as Mingyao finished her sentence. Oh. Yushu stuck her tongue out as she tossed the gun to the ground. It really did go off. Ouch! Zheng Ningjun rolled his eyes and almost cried. He'd been hoping that Yushu's kick wouldn't cause him any serious internal injuries, and he'd just have to get Yao Wang to take a look at him. Maybe he'd be able to recover, but Yushu had shot him in the crotch. That hope had been dashed to smithereens. The gun was fired by accident, and it was quite accurate. Although Ma Zhu's body was in pain, he couldn't watch Yushu kill Zheng Ningjun. His boss told him to protect him, he couldn't run away alone. With that thought, Ma Zhu gritted his teeth and flew over. He picked up Zheng Ningjun and glared at Lin Yi with hatred before quickly descending the mountain. Ma Zhu didn't know why Lin Yi didn't kill Zheng Ningjun. It was probably the same reason why Zheng Ningjun didn't dare to kill Mingyao and Yushu. With that thought, he was relieved. At least Lin Yi wouldn't chase after them. He didn't know that Lin Yi couldn't kill him even if he wanted to now. Just as Ma Zhu left, Lin Yi finally couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. Huh? Where's Shield Bro? Yushu wanted to cheer for Lin Yi, but in the blink of an eye, Lin Yi disappeared. Lin Yi! Mingyao's eyes were sharp and she saw Lin Yi fall to the ground. She ran over subconsciously. Lin Yi, how are you? At this moment, Lin Yi's face was pale. His eyes were slightly closed, but he didn't faint. He said in a weak voice. Help me to a quiet place, I need to heal. Okay. Mingyao saw that Lin Yi wasn't dead and she was overjoyed. She quickly reached out to help Lin Yi. But Lin Yi was simply too weak. He didn't have an ounce of strength left in his body. He tried to stand up with Mingyao's help, but he couldn't. Mingyao saw how weak Lin Yi was and her heart ached. She wanted to carry him, but she hesitated. She wasn't his girlfriend, it wasn't good to hug him. If this news got out, how could she get married in the future? Mingyao valued chastity very much. This was also the reason why she had such an intense reaction when she kissed Lin Yi. She felt that a girl should be loyal to one person. The only person who could be intimate with her was her boyfriend, her future husband. However, Lin Yi became like this because of her. He almost gave up his life to defeat Ma Zhu. Why should she care about this? At most, she wouldn't marry anyone. If no one wanted her, she could just marry Lin Yi. Besides, when she was in the hospital, he had already seen her naked. Why should she care about this? Even Mingyao herself jumped in fright at the thought. Was this what she was thinking? Or, Mingyao was confused about her future. Looking at Yushu, Mingyao gritted her teeth and reached out to carry Lin Yi. However, she realized that Lin Yi was too heavy. If she carried him alone, she was afraid that she would fall on Lin Yi. She could only say, Shu, come help me. What are you standing there for? Oh, I thought Yao sis wanted to monopolize Shield Bro. Yushu quickly ran over to help. Mingyao was speechless. She and Yushu carried Lin Yi to the cave and placed him on the ground carefully. Then she asked, all right, what should I do now? Use a knife to cut open the gunshot wound on my leg. Take out the bullet and let out the poisonous blood. Clean it. Before Lin Yi entered the jade space, he had to take out the poisonous bullet. Although according to Lin Yi's judgment, the poison on the bullet wasn't too strong, or he would have died a long time ago, he couldn't be careless. Who knew if there would be trouble after a long time? Shu, go get the mineral water. Mingyao said hurriedly. Ah. But Yao sis, the mineral water was poured out earlier. Look, there's still water. Yushu's face was bitter. She pointed at her masterpiece and said, is juice okay? Mingyao was speechless. She looked at Lin Yi and asked. Chapter 894. Or it'll be a loss. Oh, I'll go get some now then. Yushu, on the other hand, was worried about Lin Yi's injuries as well. She got up to get some water from the bottle. Let General Wei Wu stay with you. It can find you and keep you safe. Lin Yi said. Okay. Yushu ran out of the cave and went to get water with General Wei Wu. What do I do now? Meng Yao had never experienced something like this before, and she didn't know what to do. Yushu was gone and she didn't know what to do. There's a dagger on the side of my shoe. Take it out, cut open the wound on my leg, and take the bullet out. Lin Yi really didn't have any strength left. It was already a miracle that he was able to talk without fainting. Okay. Meng Yao didn't dare delay. She bent down and found a dagger on the side of Lin Yi's shoe. She looked at the wound on Lin Yi's leg and hesitated. You. Take off your pants? You're not helping me? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't have the strength. If it weren't for the urgency of the situation, Lin Yi wouldn't have let Meng Yao do something like this. She was a newbie, and she didn't even know how to remove a bullet. Lin Yi was worried that she wouldn't be able to do it. But Lin Yi really had no other choice. Lin Yi wouldn't be able to last until reinforcements came down the mountain. He had to get the poison out of his body before he fainted. Oh, Meng Yao blushed. She knew that Lin Yi didn't have the strength to take off his pants, but it was embarrassing for her to do it for him. The miss clenched her teeth and used her trembling hands to touch Lin Yi's belt, but because of her nervousness, she couldn't open the belt buckle no matter how hard she tried. She was so anxious that her forehead was covered with sweat. She didn't want to waste time, but the more anxious she was, the more mistakes she'd make. Meng Yao almost bit her lip. There's a bayonet at the side, just open it. Lin Yi looked at Missy's flushed face and really wanted to bite her. And she's so cute. Oh. Meng Yao followed Lin Yi's instructions, a little embarrassed. She unbuckled the belt, but her movements paused. The eldest miss had never thought that one day she would have to take off her pants for a man. However, this scene did not happen on their wedding night, but in a rundown cave. Moreover, the two of them were not going to do such a beautiful thing. Meng Yao clenched her teeth and pulled down Lin Yi's pants. Lin Yi found the miss expression funny. Why was she acting like a gangster? Inside the trousers, Lin Yi was only wearing a pair of shorts. The young miss's heart was in her throat again. She didn't dare to look, but she had to, because right now, time was life. The miss was very clear about this. Can you open your legs? The miss pursed her lips, completely different from her usual self. At this moment, she was like a shy little wife looking at Lin Yi. She wanted to reject him, but at the same time she wanted to welcome him. Lin Yi moved his legs with difficulty, and Meng Yao suddenly realized that Lin Yi was injured. How could he move? She quickly reached out to help Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi tried his best to open his legs, and Meng Yao also wanted to help Lin Yi. The two of them moved at the same time, and Meng Yao's hand touched something she shouldn't have touched. And so Lin Yi had a very evil and disappointing reaction. And then the miss face turned even redder, like a cooked lobster. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. How could he have a reaction in this situation? This was too evil. Meng Yao didn't know what to do. The impact of today's events was too big. You touched me in the hospital, and today, I'm the one who's at a disadvantage. Meng Yao incoherently tried to defend herself from the embarrassment. Lin Yi looked at the miss who was using such a weak excuse to defend herself. He found it funny. So the miss had such a cute side to her. Under her usual cold appearance, there was a cute and passionate heart. Okay. But I can't hold it anymore. After you help me take out the bullet, you can touch me however you want. Lin Yi also joked. Although Lin Yi's joke was a little inappropriate, it became an important spice in the atmosphere. Meng Yao heard Lin Yi's words and glared at Lin Yi. She laughed and raised the dagger in her hand. Do something naughty again and I'll cut you. Meng Yao wouldn't have said something like this if this was a different time and place, but with Lin Yi's joke, Meng Yao regretted it as soon as she said it. She shut her mouth after saying it. But these few jokes made Meng Yao let go of her shyness, and she started to study Lin Yi's wound. What do I do? Meng Yao asked. Cut open the wound and take out the bullet. Lin Yi said. How do I do that? Meng Yao didn't know where to start. Whatever you like, do it however you want. Lin Yi said. Does it hurt? Meng Yao couldn't bring herself to do it. Yes, but if you don't do it, I might die from the poison. Lin Yi frowned. I don't know what poison Zhen Yingjun made, but it has a suppressive effect on the human nervous system. If I don't take it out, there might be a problem. Lin Yi was afraid that he would go into a coma after the poison took effect instead of entering the jade space. Fainting from exhaustion was different from fainting from being poisoned. Lin Yi didn't dare to take the risk. Oh. Meng Yao heard that Lin Yi would die if she didn't take out the bullet. She was so scared that she didn't care anymore. She clenched her teeth and held the dagger in her hand. She started cutting the wound on Lin Yi's leg with trembling hands. Miss, you need to use more strength. Be more ruthless. You're playing with death by 1,000 cuts right now. Lin Yi was speechless as he watched Meng Yao cut herself bit by bit. This is one of the 10 great tortures of the Qing dynasty. Ah. Meng Yao's face reddened as she nodded. She finally increased the strength of her grip, but it was more of a test than anything else. Luckily, Lin Yi's dagger was fast and Lin Yi's endurance was strong. Otherwise he would have collapsed. The wound was finally cut open by Meng Yao. She could vaguely see the bullet inside, but Meng Yao didn't know how to do it. After all, she didn't have any tools like tweezers. She couldn't just use her hands to cut it, could she? Now I can see the bullet, but how do I take it out? Meng Yao asked hesitantly. Chapter 895. Yao Yao is so strong. Ugh. Meng Yao hesitated before lowering her head and sucking on Lin Yi's wound. She couldn't think of anything else other than that. Meng Yao didn't dare make too big a cut on Lin Yi's thigh. She felt that the only way to suck the bullet out was with her mouth, as well as the poison blood around it. Meng Yao didn't even think about whether or not it would be inappropriate to do that. She could feel that Lin Yi's voice was getting weaker and weaker, and she couldn't care less about anything else. It didn't take long for the bullet to come out, much to Meng Yao's relief. She spat it out and started sucking the poison blood out of Lin Yi's wound. Yushu and General Weiwu didn't dare tarry after getting some water from the stream. They rushed back to the cave, only to see a scene that left Meng Yao's mouth agape. Holy shit, Yao Yao, you're so strong. You're helping Shield Bro. Yushu cried out in surprise. You want to repay him with your body now? But you can't, Shield Bro's injured, he's really weak. Stop, let him recover first. Yushu couldn't be blamed for her quick image. Meng Yao's back was facing the cave entrance, and her head was buried between Lin Yi's thighs. Lin Yi, on the other hand, wasn't wearing any pants. It was hard not to misunderstand this scene. Meng Yao didn't understand Yushu's words at first, but the latter part made sense. She almost choked on Lin Yi's poison blood as she stood up and spat it out, glaring at Yushu. Shu, what the hell are you talking about? I'm giving Lin Yi drugs. Ah. Yushu blinked, realizing that she'd misunderstood when she saw that Shield Bro was still wearing his underwear. Aye. Haha. Yao Yao, here's some water, I brought it. Meng Yao glared at Yushu, but couldn't help but shake her head with a bitter smile as she thought about how intimate their position was. Luckily, it was only Shu who'd seen it. Someone else would have walked away a long time ago if it had been anyone else. Meng Yao cleaned Lin Yi's wound and stood up. She wasn't in the mood to argue with Shu about what happened before. She asked hurriedly, Is there any bandage I can use? Nope. Sanitary napkins work? Yushu said weakly after rummaging through her bag for a while. Meng Yao didn't know what to say. That's a bloodsucker, right? I don't think so. I don't think so, but Shield Bro's wound doesn't seem to be bleeding anymore. Yushu said, surprised. Meng Yao turned her head back and saw that the wound on Lin Yi's leg had stopped bleeding. She let out a sigh of relief. Then we'll stick a sanitary pad on it first. We'll carry him down the mountain. Lin Yi's body had been soaked in all kinds of medicine since he was young, so his self-healing ability was quite good. Stopping the bleeding was a piece of cake. Just as Meng Yao and Yushu were talking, Lin Yi finally fainted. He was simply too tired, and his stamina was severely depleted. The next moment, Lin Yi entered the jade space. This was the only thing that Lin Yi could rejoice about. He could still enter the jade space. Lin Yi was afraid that he'd be poisoned too deeply, and wouldn't be able to connect to the jade space if he fainted. Phew. Lin Yi thanked his lucky stars. He saw Jiao Lao in the jade space and couldn't help but grin. I didn't think that I'd be able to see you again. I really didn't. I thought that you'd die for sure. Jiao Lao nodded in agreement. But I didn't think that you'd come up with such a crazy move. You're a lunatic. It's too crazy. Do you know that if you took a step back later, you'd be smashed into pieces? Do you think that you're more resistant than Ma Zhu with his golden shield? Linny smiled bitterly and felt a little awkward. I didn't care that much back then, right? How could I think of the consequences? At that time, I thought that it'd be great if I could die with Maju. Oh right, Jiaolao, why didn't you remind me? What's the use of reminding you? You didn't care that much already, and you still have the time to care about my reminder? Jiaolao shook his head. But I really didn't think that you'd come up with such a way to use energy. Energy bomb, that's really ruthless. That attack was no less than the bomb that you used to blow up Qibing's skyscraper. In school, the physics teacher always said, think of energy when you don't have any moves. Didn't I think of energy now? Linny was talking about the solution to a physics problem. During this period of time, Linny often attended classes in school. When solving physics problems, the physics teacher always said, think of energy when you don't have any moves. Linny memorized it. He didn't think that it would become an important way to save his life. Jiao Yazi was speechless. You were lucky, but I have to say that you created a trump card. A trump card that can allow you to defeat opponents who are at a higher level than you. However, it's not very useful. Oh, Linny paused for a second, and then nodded. He understood what Jiao Yazi meant. Although the energy bomb was extremely powerful, it would also cause great damage to the user. It would be fine if the opponent died from the explosion, but if it didn't, and the opponent still had the strength to counterattack, then Linny would be in danger. The energy bomb would drain all the energy in the body. Once it was used, it was equivalent to betting all of one's life on this move. It was extremely dangerous. Therefore, this move could only be used when there was no other choice. Just like today, although Maju was heavily injured from the explosion, he still had the strength to attack Lin Yi. If he wasn't scared silly by Lin Yi and continued to attack, then Lin Yi would probably die here today. However, Lin Yi could still stand up at that time. Although he looked pathetic, there were no signs of serious injuries. This made Maju inexplicably terrified. He was afraid that Lin Yi would use such a killer move again, and then he would really turn into ashes. Indeed, this move can't be used casually. Otherwise, it would be really dangerous. Lin Yi nodded. All right, hurry up and look at your injuries. Jiao Yazi said to Lin Yi. Lin Yi sat cross-legged and silently channeled the art of dragon mastery. His body really needed to replenish energy. The energy in the space of the jade quickly rushed into Lin Yi's body. This feeling of being filled with energy was really comfortable. Lin Yi couldn't help but let out a satisfied moan, enjoying the infusion of energy. Chapter 896. He couldn't accept this. Although the energy was quickly absorbed into Lin Yi's body, it could not stay in his body. The energy entered Lin Yi's body through the pores on this side, and exited through the pores on the other side. It just shuttled through Lin Yi's body and returned to the space in the jade pendant. What's going on? Lin Yi was shocked. He quickly stopped the art of dragon mastery and checked his body. That wasn't right. Although he was heavily injured this time, his injuries weren't any lighter than this time after he was beaten by Uncle Zhu. What's wrong? Jiao Yazi sensed that something was wrong with Lin Yi and quickly asked. Jiao Lao, it seems that the energy cannot be absorbed by my body. I can't convert the energy in the space of the jade pendant into my own energy. Lin Yi's eyes widened. My body is like a sieve. Energy enters from one side and exits from the other. Oh? Jiao Yazi was taken aback and frowned. Circulate the art of dragon mastery now, let me see. Although Lin Yi was anxious, he still nodded and activated the art of dragon mastery. The energy in the space of the jade pendant was instantly mobilized and rushed into Lin Yi's body. However, something strange happened again. After the energy entered Lin Yi's body, it turned around and slipped away from Lin Yi's body. Indeed, as Lin Yi had described, his body was like a sieve, and the energy only passed through it. Strange. This is too strange. Jiao Yazi widened his eyes and looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Energy can't stay in the body. This is too strange. 10 minutes later, Lin Yi stopped practicing the art of dragon mastery dejectedly. His expression was extremely ugly. Jiao Lao, I still can't convert the energy to my own use. I can clearly feel the energy leaving my body. Jiao Yazi fell into deep thought. Let me think carefully. Jiao Yazi said as he walked over to check on Lin Yi. How is it? Lin Yi asked anxiously after waiting for a while, and not seeing Jiao Yazi speak. After a while, Jiao Yazi shook his head regretfully. I've found a problem, and according to my guess, this might be the reason why you can't absorb the energy. What's the reason? Lin Yi asked anxiously. The reason? I'll tell you. Don't be sad, I hope you can hold on. Jiao Lao sighed and said. What do you mean? Lin Yi was stunned at first, but he immediately understood what Jiao Yazi meant. Jiao Yazi meant that although he found the reason why he couldn't absorb the energy, he didn't find a solution. Lin Yi's heart sank, but he smiled bitterly. As long as there was a reason, there was no need to worry about finding a solution. So he said, Jiao Lao, tell me I'm not that weak. I thought about dying together with you, but now I just can't absorb the energy. Then I'll tell you. Jiao Yazi's expression became serious. Your meridians were all destroyed by your own energy bomb. It can be said that you're a useless person now. A spiritual master's meridians are all destroyed, so you're no different from an ordinary person. You can't use qi anymore. Lin Yi was shocked, and he quickly checked the injuries in his body. Lin Yi was in a hurry to train in the space of the jade pendant, so he didn't check his injuries carefully because Lin Yi was sure that no matter how serious his injuries were, they could be healed in the space of the jade pendant. Just like General Weiwu, his organs and meridians were almost destroyed by Yu Kuan, but Lin Yi could still use the energy in his body to save it. So Lin Yi thought that as long as he could live, it would be fine, but he didn't have the time to check the abnormalities in his body. Now that Elder Jiao was telling him about it, Lin Yi realized that his meridians had been blown to pieces by his own energy bomb. That's not right. Suddenly, Lin Yi raised his head and looked at Jiao Lao. When I was fighting with Uncle Zhu, I was seriously injured too, and many of my meridians were broken. Although not all of them were broken, I can still use my energy to heal them, right? Well, you said it yourself. Although not all of them were broken, your situation now is that all of them are broken. Jiao Yazi shook his head. How can part of them be the same as breaking all of them? As long as there are meridians that are not broken, you can still use the art of dragon mastery, and use these meridians that are not broken to heal other damaged meridians. But now your meridians are all broken. How are you going to heal them? Lin Yi was speechless. What Jiao Yazi said was right. His situation was like a domino. As long as he pushed one down, it would cause a chain reaction. But if he didn't push one down, then all the other cards wouldn't fall. In other words, if one of his meridians was healed, he could slowly use the art of dragon mastery to heal the other meridians. But now that he couldn't heal one, then the other meridians couldn't be healed either. Your mistake is using that energy bomb. You used up all the energy in your body. If there was still a part left, even if only 1/3 of it was left in your body, it could still heal one of your damaged meridians. Jiao Yazi shook his head and said, but you didn't even leave a trace of energy. I can't do anything about it. Lin Yi didn't know what to say. Even Jiao Yazi couldn't do anything about it. If he said that he couldn't do anything about it, then he really couldn't do anything about it. He kept his life, but he lost his strength. Was it a blessing or a curse? Lin Yi wasn't willing to give up. From the peak of the early phase of the mystic class, he suddenly dropped to the point where he had no strength at all. This difference made Lin Yi extremely disappointed. Gritting his teeth, Lin Yi silently started the art of dragon mastery again. This time he didn't stop for a few hours. Lin Yi let the energy flow through his body, but he still continued to train without a care. Jiao Yazi looked at the determined Lin Yi and shook his head, but he didn't say anything to stop him. He knew very well that if it was anyone else, they wouldn't give up so easily. So he let Lin Yi experiment. In a situation like this, unless Lin Yi gave up on his own accord, he wouldn't let the matter rest. Chapter 897. Life is full of adventures. Jiao Lao. Jiao Lao. Lin Yi exclaimed in surprise. Jiao Lao, I did it. Oh. Jiao Yazi was surprised. You did it? Yes, I realized that the energy that passed through my body wasn't completely useless. There was still a small amount left, and it's slowly healing my body, Lin Yi said excitedly. Although the healing area is very small, I can still feel it. Oh, you mean that? Jiao Yazi rubbed his chin. He really couldn't bear to hurt Lin Yi's feelings. However, there were some things he had to say after some hesitation. You're right. Since you're using the art of dragon mastery, it's a process of energy absorption and conversion. Although your meridians are damaged, they're not completely useless. You can still convert a small amount of energy, but it's just a drop in the ocean. Oh, that means if I continue to train like this, it's possible to recover my strength? Lin Yi was overjoyed when he heard Jiao Yazi's words. He didn't hear Jiao Yazi's hidden meaning. Yes, it's possible. Jiao Yazi nodded. In about 100 years, you'll be able to repair 1/3 of your meridians. Huh? Lin Yi was shocked by Jiao Yazi's words. 100 years? Only 1/3 of it? Yes, if you train day and night, you'll be able to repair 1/3 of it in about 30,000 days. In 100,000 days, you'll be able to repair a whole meridian. By then, you'll be able to repair all your meridians very quickly. Jiao Yazi counted with his fingers for Lin Yi. Lin Yi was speechless. But I don't think it's that slow? Judging from the speed at which my injuries are healing, it will only take a few days for my injuries to recover. That's right. Jiao Yazi nodded his head as if it was a matter of course. Physical masters cultivate their bodies, while inner masters cultivate their meridians. You don't have the body of a physical master. Your body is just slightly stronger than a normal person's, so naturally, you can recover faster. However, as for your meridians, Lin Yi came to a sudden realization. So this was the reason. In that case, it seemed that he had been pleasantly surprised for nothing. Phew, Lin Yi gave up on trying and sat on the ground of the jade pendant space. Jiao Lao, is there really no other way? If I wasn't just a soul shadow, perhaps I could give it a try. If Master is here, he can also help you. Jiao Yazi said. What you said is unrealistic. Is there no more realistic way? Lin Yi asked with a bitter smile. Yes, the more realistic way is to go and practice physical masters. Jiao Yazi said. Look, that Ma Zhu, he's also very powerful after practicing physical martial arts. If you don't have a super powerful energy bomb, you're dead for sure. Lin Yi blinked his eyes. You're asking me to practice Golden Bell Shield? This is the easiest way for you to recover your strength that I can think of. Jiao Yazi nodded his head and said. Lin Yi didn't say anything. He pondered for a while and finally nodded his head. Perhaps you're right. This is the only way. It's good that you're open-minded. After all roads lead to Rome. Who knows, maybe when you open the second stone door of the cave, you'll get an unexpected reward. Jiao Yazi said. Yeah. Why didn't I think of that? Lin Yi's eyes brightened. His path of practicing was different from a physical practitioner's, but it wasn't the same as a spiritual practitioner's either. He practiced the art of dragon mastery, a very rare art. If he was behind the stone door on the second floor, there might be a way to repair his meridians. Life is always full of fortuitous encounters. When you get to the mountain, there will always be a way. Jiao Yazi said. When you're in despair, maybe there will be a light at the end of the tunnel? Lin Yi nodded. If that's the case, I'll have to heal my injuries first before anything else. Shu, can't you be more steady? How are you carrying him? If you carry him like this, your shield bro will die from the shaking. Meng Yao and Yushu carried Lin Yi down the mountain. The two girls took care of Lin Yi's injuries and didn't dare to stay any longer. They were afraid that Zhen Yingjuan's men would come back again. If that happened, not only would Lin Yi be in danger, but they would also be in danger. The phone was taken away by Zhen Yingjuan's men, and Lin Yi's phone was taken out by Meng Yao from his pocket. It was blown to pieces and couldn't be used at all. Half of the flip phone was nowhere to be seen. They couldn't call for help and were worried about Lin Yi's injuries, so they each carried Lin Yi down the mountain. Meng Yao originally wanted to carry Lin Yi, but she realized that the mountain path was too steep. She almost threw Lin Yi off, so she gave up the idea of carrying Lin Yi and asked Shu to help carry Lin Yi. So Meng Yao held Lin Yi's feet and carried his legs in front while Yushu held Lin Yi's armpits and carried Lin Yi's arms behind. The two of them walked down the mountain carefully, one in front and one behind. This steep mountain range. Even if one person went down the mountain without carrying anything, it was still very dangerous, and it was very easy to fall, not to mention two people carrying a wounded person. Oh, okay. It was Yushu's first time carrying someone, and she could only try to find a way. How could she be familiar with it? As she spoke, she tightened her grip and made Lin Yi's head press against her abdomen to prevent Lin Yi from shaking. Do you want to suffocate him to death? Your chest is so big, it's going to suffocate his head. Meng Yao looked at Yushu speechlessly and glared at her. Then what should we do? It's already so big, we can't cut it off, it's going to hurt. Yushu wanted to remove Lin Yi's head from under her chest, but she was afraid that it would hurt Lin Yi. She said helplessly, Yao sis, why don't you take the back? Your chest is small, it won't suffocate him to death. Meng Yao almost exploded from Yushu's words. What do you mean my chest is small? Mine is just the right size, okay? Who's a big cow like you? Meng Yao humphed and retorted. You continue to carry him, you're too short, it's not suitable for you to walk in front. Yushu wasn't angry. She knew that she wasn't as tall as Meng Yao. She smiled and said, okay. Chapter 898. Chapter 0897. A difficult journey. Yao Yao, are you alright? Yushu might have been messing around with Meng Yao, but she was really worried about Meng Yao. She was shocked when she saw Meng Yao fall down. SSSSSS. Meng Yao was in so much pain that she was about to cry. She had never been hurt like this before. The weather was hot, and she wasn't wearing much clothing. Kneeling on the hard stone road made her knees purple, but Meng Yao couldn't care less. She gritted her teeth and stood up slowly, but her hands were still holding on to Lin Yi's legs, afraid that she would fall. Meng Yao shook her head with a crying face. I'm fine, let's go. Oh. Yushu nodded. She knew that Yao Yao must be in a lot of pain, but she didn't know what to say. Should she ask Yao Yao to put Lin Yi down and rest for a while? That wouldn't do. The two stumbled down the mountain. Meng Yao didn't know how many times she'd fallen on her knees, and Yushu didn't know how many times she'd fallen on her buttocks. Their arms were cut by branches and rocks, but they didn't seem to notice it at all. The two let out a sigh of relief when they reached the foot of the mountain, smiling at each other as if they'd completed a big mission. They were both worried about the same man, but they weren't jealous of each other. It was as if their hearts were closer than ever. Luckily, Lin Yi didn't remove the car keys before he went up the mountain. Lin Yi had a backup plan, so that it would be easier for him to escape. No one would be able to steal his car at the foot of the mountain. It was convenient for Meng Yao and Yushu now. Otherwise, Lin Yi's car keys would have been blown to pieces. Meng Yao and Yushu carefully placed Lin Yi on the back seat of the beetle, and the two hurried back home. They didn't go to the hospital, but went home directly. They knew that Lin Yi never went to the hospital when he was injured. He could recover on his own. This time, before Lin Yi fainted, he did not ask them to send him to the hospital. Pengzhan paced around the villa anxiously. He called Lin Yi, but his phone was turned off. He called his daughter and Shu, but their phones were still turned off. He couldn't contact the kidnappers, so he didn't know how Lin Yi, his daughter, and Shu were doing. Did Lin Yi pick up his daughter and Shu? Did the kidnappers keep their promise and let them go? Why did Lin Yi also turn off his phone? Faubert was injured, and Pengzhan didn't even have anyone to talk to. He couldn't call the police either, so he could only wait anxiously for Lin Yi's return. DD. Suddenly, the sound of a car came from outside the villa. Pengzhan jumped and quickly ran out of the villa, only to see that Yushu's yellow beetle was back. Pengzhan shouted subconsciously, but after shouting, he realized that the person in the driver's seat wasn't Lin Yi, but his daughter Meng Yao. Daddy. Meng Yao gritted her teeth the whole way. Her knees were hurting, and she couldn't even step on the gas pedal, but she still persisted. She had to persist. Lin Yi was down, and she had to bear the responsibility of an elder sister. Shu, on the other hand, was even worse than her. Meng Yao fell on her knees, and Yushu fell on her butt. She didn't even dare to sit down, lying on her side the whole way, and it was very uncomfortable. However, seeing Pengzhan, Meng Yao couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears flowed out of her eyes. There were grievances, pain, and most of all, she was worried for Lin Yi. Fortunately, they reached home safely and Lin Yi didn't die. Meng Yao got off the car, and she couldn't even stand straight. She didn't know how she managed to persevere the whole way without any accidents. She jumped into Pengzhan's arms. Daddy, I'm so scared. Alright, it's good that you're back. Pengzhan was happy to see his daughter, but he didn't see Lin Yi. He was curious. Yao Yao, where's Lin Yi? He's in the back of the car. He's hurt. He got hurt trying to save me and Shu. Meng Yao cried very sad. Daddy, Lin Yi almost died just now, he almost lost his life to save us. Peng Zhan was shocked. Then why are you guys still going home? Aren't you going to send him to the hospital? Shield Bro always recovers on his own. He never asked us to send him to the hospital. Yushu explained, covering her, but as she got off the car. Is that so? Peng Zhan remembered that when Faubert was injured, the doctors in the hospital couldn't do anything about it, right? It seemed like Lin Yi had his own ways, and Peng Zhan didn't say anything more. He opened the car door and carried Lin Yi into the villa. Lin Yi was placed on his bed in his own room, and Meng Yao and Yushu had already changed into pajamas. One of them had a bruised butt, and the other had a purple knee. One of them didn't dare to stand, and the other didn't dare to sit, but both of them stayed by Lin Yi's bed. Peng Zhan sighed. These two kids had never suffered much since they were young, but now, with just a little bit of safflower oil, they gritted their teeth and stayed by Lin Yi's side without rest. This made Peng Zhan very happy. They had finally grown up without him noticing. She was no longer the carefree little girl she used to be. Do we really not need to send Lin Yi to the hospital? Although Peng Zhan saw that Lin Yi's complexion had obviously improved, he was still a little worried. There's no need. The hospital can't do anything about his injury. Meng Yao shook her head. She believed that Lin Yi must have a way to treat his injury, even if Lin Yi seemed to be asleep at the moment. Peng Zhan nodded. I'll go to the company's police station to deal with the aftermath. You guys stay at home with Lin Yi, don't go out. The villa area had 24-hour surveillance, so the kidnappers wouldn't be able to attack openly. Besides, they didn't know how Lin Yi's injury was, and he couldn't even protect himself right now, so they didn't have to worry about Meng Yao and Yushu's safety. As for Faubert's injury, they could only wait for Lin Yi to wake up before going to save Faubert. Otherwise, there was no other way. After Peng Zhan left, Meng Yao hesitated and said to Yushu, Shu, should we tell Tang Yin about Lin Yi's injury? Tell her what? Let her cause trouble? If she knew that Shield Bro got injured because of us, she would definitely be furious. Yushu shook her head. Chapter 899. Who is right and who is wrong? Then. I understand. Yao Yao sis, you decide. Yushu didn't know what to do. Although she didn't want Tang Yin to come, Meng Yao was right. They had to let Tang Yin know sooner or later. Shu, Tang Yin isn't a bad person. When we were in danger, Tang Yin would ask Lin Yi to help. How could we not tell her when something happened to Lin Yi? Meng Yao seemed to be explaining it to Shu, but at the same time, it seemed like she was explaining it to herself. Speaking of which, Lin Yi's just a shield dad hired for me, he's not my bodyguard. Why would he risk his life for 30,000 yuan? Yeah. Yushu nodded. Maybe Shield Bro likes you? Ha. Meng Yao paused, blushing at Yushu's words. How is that possible? Don't talk nonsense. If he liked me, why would he bother with Tang Yin? Tang Yin is braver than you. Yushu, on the other hand, saw through everything. Shield Bro would have been yours if you'd confessed earlier, Yao Yao. Meng Yao's heart tightened. Was that really the case? She shook her head. Let's not talk about this, I'll call Tang Yin. At school, Tang Yin was restless the entire morning. She had been worried about Lin Yi ever since she left Lin Yi, but she didn't dare to call him. She didn't want to disturb him, so she didn't even listen to what the teacher was saying in class. She kept thinking about Lin Yi. It was finally noon, but there was still no news from Lin Yi. She couldn't help but give Lin Yi a call, but the phone was turned off. Tang Yun's heart tightened as a bad feeling rose in her heart. Lin Yi, why did you turn off your phone? Meng Yao and Yushu had turned off their phones earlier, and now Lin Yi had turned off his too. Did something happen to him too? Thinking of this, Tang Yun quickly called Meng Yao and Yushu, but their phones were still turned off. Tang Yun panicked. She wanted to know about Lin Yi's situation, but at this moment, she didn't know who to ask. She was so anxious that she didn't even want to eat lunch. She sat alone in the classroom in a daze, somewhat at a loss. Tang Yin's phone rang all of a sudden, startling her. She quickly picked it up and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. Hello. Tang Yin? I'm Meng Yao. Miss didn't have her phone anymore, so she could only use her home phone to call Tang Yin. She had a natural hostility towards Tang Yin, so she remembered Tang Yin's phone number very clearly. Otherwise, she wouldn't know how to contact Tang Yin. Ah, Mengyao. Are you alright? Tang Yin was relieved. If Mengyao was fine, then Lin Yi should be fine as well. However, Tang Yin's heart tightened again. If Lin Yi was fine, then why didn't Lin Yi call her, but Mengyao? This didn't make sense. Tang Yin subconsciously asked, "Where's Lin Yi? Is he with you?" Lin Yi. Mengyao had already decided to tell Tang Yin, but she didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to say it. How to face Tang Yin. What happened to Lin Yi? Tang Yin saw Mengyao's hesitation, and she had a bad feeling. What happened to him? He's injured. Mengyao gritted her teeth and said, "I'm sorry." Injured? Is it serious? Tang Yin asked anxiously. He's unconscious, but it shouldn't be a big deal. After all, he's been injured a few times, but he's always been fine. Mengyao said carefully. This time, she was a little weak in front of Tang Yin, but she couldn't help it. Lin Yi was injured because of her. Should? Tang Yin was a little annoyed. What did she mean by should? How could she be so careless? She quickly asked, "What did the doctor say? Where are you guys now?" "I'll go right now." "We didn't go to the hospital, we're at home." Mengyao said. "Ah, why didn't you go to the hospital? You guys. Seriously." Tang Yin was a little angry. He's injured, and you guys didn't send him to the hospital. Are you trying to kill him? Tang Yin, listen to me first. Mengyao naturally understood Tang Yin's feelings. It's true that Lin Yi got injured, but he recovered by himself several times. This time, he only asked us to bring him to a quiet place to heal. He didn't ask us to send him to the hospital. I see. Tang Yin suddenly remembered that Lin Yi went to find trouble with Zhao Qibing for her. After tearing down his building, he was injured by Zhao Qibing's men. He didn't go to the hospital but went to Fatty Lai's house to heal. After that, Lin Yi recovered by himself without any doctor's help. Thinking of this, Tang Yin suddenly felt embarrassed for her rashness. I was too anxious. I'm sorry, I'll go right now. Tang Yin's apology made Mengyao a little embarrassed. After all, Lin Yi got injured because of her, and Tang Yin still said this. She felt even more sorry. You don't need to apologize to me. You're worried about Lin Yi, it's not wrong. After all, it's because of me that Lin Yi got injured. I should be the one apologizing to you. Alright, let's not talk about who's right and who's wrong. I'll go right now. Tang Yin didn't want to dwell on this issue. It was meaningless. She was worried about Lin Yi more than she was complaining about Mengyao. Although Tang Yin still held a grudge against Lin Yi for getting injured because of Mengyao and Yushu, it was Lin Yi's choice no matter what. Lin Yi went to save them. It was Lin Yi's decision. As Lin Yi's girlfriend, she should support Lin Yi unconditionally and not blame Mengyao and Yushu. Come to my house directly, Villa Area A0033, Mengyao said. The security here knows. Okay. Tang Yin remembered Mengyao's house number and hung up. She stumbled out of the classroom and almost bumped into someone. Luckily, Tang Yin reacted fast enough and stopped in time. Mr. Wang. Tang Yin jumped. She didn't expect it to be Wang Jifeng. Chapter 900. Taking advantage of him? I understand, Master Wang. Tang Yin wasn't in the mood to talk to him anymore. She was worried about Lin Yi's safety. She forced a smile and left quickly. Wang Jifeng shook his head. Why was Tang Yin's attitude so cold now? Could it be that Lin Yi said something to her, and she knew about his situation? That's why she was so cold to him. Wang Jifeng couldn't help but worry at the thought. According to Tang Yin's personality, although her life was much better than before, she wouldn't be so extravagant as to take a taxi. But this time, she stopped a taxi and went straight to the villa area. So beautiful. This was Tang Yin's first thought when she arrived at the villa area. Every villa was spacious and bright. They were even more beautiful than Fatty Lai's villa. Tang Yin already thought that her new house was beautiful, but when she arrived here, she finally knew what luxury was. So Mengyao's family was this rich. Tang Yin sighed. If she really had to compete with the miss, what could she use to compete? But this thought only flashed through her mind. Tang Yin's heart was on Lin Yi now. She paid the taxi fee and came to the villa A0033. She pressed the doorbell. Yarao sis, someone is pressing the doorbell, Yushu said. Oh. Mengyao looked at Lin Yi blankly. She didn't know what was going on in her mind. She only responded subconsciously after hearing Yushu's words. Yao sis? Yushu called again. Oh. Mengyao responded again, but there was no other reaction. Yushu had no choice but to open the door first. Lin Yi. Mengyao didn't hear what Yushu was saying at all, her thoughts drifting back to the first time she met Lin Yi. He was wearing a tattered shirt and a pair of tattered pants, and Mengyao wasn't good at communicating with strangers in the first place. It was only natural that she would reject a stranger like Lin Yi from the bottom of her heart. Lin Yi. However, after Lin Yi took a shower and changed his clothes, Mengyao had to admit that Lin Yi was quite energetic. At least a guy with this kind of appearance should be very popular with girls. But Mengyao didn't like him very much. How could she get used to a stranger suddenly appearing in the villa? After the big fight with her dad, Mengyao had to accept the reality of Lin Yi's existence. But because of her instinctive rejection and vigilance towards strangers, the miss didn't give him a good look. Afraid that Lin Yi would do something bad to her, Mengyao called her best friend Shu over and asked her to stay with her in the villa. With Lin Yi's addition, the conflict increased. Mengyao almost went crazy after drinking the soda, with Lin Yi's saliva on it. Did she kiss this bastard indirectly? Mengyao was disgusted. She really wanted to kick this bastard out of the villa. But now, she felt heartache for him, shed tears for him, and gave up her shyness and modesty for him. Why? When did it start to change? Was it the first time he saved her? Or did she accept him naturally after living with him for a long time? Mengyao didn't know. She really didn't know. She didn't know why, but she didn't hate him anymore. On the contrary, she started to rely on him. She treated him as a member of the villa, as her family. With him around, she felt at ease, because she was afraid of losing Lin Yi. The miss was jealous of another pretty girl for the first time. She said something that even she was embarrassed about. Today, when Lin Yi told them to learn to take care of themselves, Mengyao's heart felt like it was being torn apart. It was a heart-wrenching pain like losing a family member. It was just like the time when General Wei Wu was injured by Yu Kuan, or even worse, she didn't know what position Lin Yi was in her heart. Was he a family member? A relative? A friend? Or was he just a follower? Or, she didn't know? She really didn't know. She only knew that if she lost Lin Yi, she would be very sad. I'm sorry. I always bring trouble to you. The miss caressed Lin Yi's face and murmured. Yushu ran to the door and saw that it was Tang Yun. She opened the door, but she didn't know what to say. How's Lin Yi? Tang Yun asked anxiously. He's still the same. Yushu let Tang Yun in and said, you can see for yourself later. I think Shield Bro should be fine. He's very powerful. Tang Yun frowned. What use do you think it is? You're not a prophet. Over there, that's Shield Bro's room. Yushu pointed at Lin Yi's room after bringing Tang Yun into the villa. Tang Yun looked around the first floor of the villa and asked casually, where do you guys live? Upstairs. Yushu said subconsciously. Oh haha. Tang Yun let out a sigh of relief. Oh no, the room downstairs is the guest room. Shield Bro is staying upstairs with Yao sis. Yushu realized that she slipped up and quickly corrected herself. Oh, it's pretty good. Tang Yun nodded. Pretty good. Yushu froze and widened her eyes. She immediately understood that Tang Yun didn't believe her at all. Yushu shrugged. Why was her mouth moving so fast? It wasn't easy for her to lie to Tang Yun, saying that Yao sis and Shield Bro were taking a shower. Now her lie was exposed. Tang Yun entered Lin Yi's room, and the first thing she saw was Mengyao, who was sitting on the edge of the bed. She didn't seem to notice that someone was here, and her right hand was placed on Lin Yi's cheek. This made Tang Yun frown subconsciously, and she felt uncomfortable. Tang Yun had already calmed down. She didn't come here to fight with the big and small families. She just wanted to watch over Lin Yi and see if he was okay. But Mengyao couldn't be so shameless. Even if Lin Yi fainted, she couldn't take advantage of him, could she? Ahem. Tang Yun coughed twice. Men and women shouldn't touch each other, miss, please behave yourself. Mengyao didn't realize that Tang Yun was here. She was startled by the sudden voice. Her face blushed and the hand on Lin Yi's cheek trembled. She quickly moved it away like a mistress who was caught cheating. I saw that Lin Yi's face was a little dirty, so I wiped it for him. Don't misunderstand. Chapter 901. Jinx. Tang Yun naturally didn't believe Meng Yao's words. She looked at Meng Yao suspiciously, trying to figure out what was going on. Oh Yao sis, why do you say that? What do you mean by that? You and Shield Bro are closer than her. Yushu wasn't happy. Shu, don't talk nonsense. Meng Yao glared at Yushu. She didn't want her to continue. But Yushu insisted. I'll say it. What's wrong with that? Shield Bro saw you naked and touched your whole body. He wouldn't have kissed you if there was no such thing as giving or receiving. You are much closer than her. Tang Yun's face changed, but she knew that Yushu always liked to talk nonsense. She didn't believe her completely. Humph, what you said is probably false. Don't say it's false if you don't believe me. Yushu humphed. Yao sis took off all her clothes for Shield Bro when she was poisoned. Shield Bro saw every part of Yao sis' body and she even peed on his face. Wah! Tang Yun and Meng Yao gasped at the same time. Meng Yao was furious after hearing Yushu's words. She ignored the pain in her leg and jumped up from the bed. Shu, I'll tear your mouth off and let you talk. Oh. Don't. I'm just telling the truth. Hey, be honest. Yushu screamed as well. Tang Yun looked at the two clowns and didn't know what to say. If Lin Yi had seen or touched Meng Yao's body when he was treating Meng Yao, then it was understandable because Lin Yi was playing the role of a doctor. A doctor's heart didn't discriminate between genders. But thinking about the relationship between Meng Yao and Lin Yi, Tang Yun was conflicted. If Lin Yi had seen a girl he didn't know and looked at her body, then Tang Yun wouldn't feel anything special. But Meng Yao was different. Plus, what did Yushu say that Meng Yao had peed on Lin Yi's face? What was going on? Wasn't this Meng Yao too evil? Lin Yi treated her, but she still treated Lin Yi like this? Tang Yun, don't listen to Shu's nonsense. What she said is true, but Lin Yi and I are just a patient and doctor. Meng Yao tried to explain subconsciously. This time, Lin Yi's injury changed Meng Yao's attitude. She didn't want to fight with Tang Yun anymore. Besides, Lin Yi was injured because of her. What was the point of fighting? Oh. Tang Yun nodded. She didn't want to argue with Meng Yao, but she was a little annoyed. She looked down at Lin Yi. How did he get hurt? He did it to save me and Shu. Meng Yao didn't want to hide anything as she told Tang Yun everything that happened. So that's how it is. Tang Yun's heart ached. Lin Yi was willing to give up his life for Meng Yao and Yushu. How could this be? If Lin Yi died, what would happen to her? Didn't he think about the consequences? Why did he treat Meng Yao and Yushu so well? Tang Yun was jealous. Although Meng Yao and Yushu would be in danger if Lin Yi didn't save them, Lin Yi couldn't just throw his life away like that. Haven't we already averted the danger? Don't be so sad. Shield Bro's complexion is getting better. He should be fine now. Yushu saw that Meng Yao and Tang Yun's faces were filled with sadness, so she said, last time, Shield Bro got hurt because of you. This time it's because of Yao sis, so you guys are even now. Don't blame each other anymore. Man, I wonder when Shield Bro will get hurt because of me? Shu, you jinx. What are you talking about? Meng Yao heard Yushu's words and couldn't help but get angry. Didn't he have you this time? You want Lin Yi to get hurt? Tang Yun also looked at Yushu angrily. However, since Meng Yao had already scolded her, Tang Yun couldn't say anything. Although Lin Yi was in the jade space, he still knew what was happening outside. However, his body was too weak and he couldn't wake up. Meng Yao and Yushu worked hard to carry him down the mountain. Lin Yi was very touched. The miss was willing to kneel on the ground for him. It made Lin Yi very touched. Lin Yi risked his life to save them. The miss was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Only at this moment could she show her true nature. Lin Yi, on the other hand, knew what happened after Tang Yun's arrival. He was a little embarrassed as he listened to the three women's insinuations. However, Lin Yi wanted to wake up and tell them not to worry about him. But Lin Yi's body was too heavily injured. His body couldn't absorb the energy in the jade space. He could only rely on the art of dragon mastery to slowly recover his injuries. Time passed. 1 hour, one afternoon, all the way until night. Lin Yi still didn't show any signs of waking up. Tang Yun was getting anxious. Meng Yao and Yushu were getting anxious as well. The three of them put aside their previous grudges. At this moment, they only had one goal, and that was to find a way to wake up Lin Yi as soon as possible. Why hasn't Lin Yi woken up yet? Tang Yin was worried. She felt that time was passing like a year. I don't know. Last time, he woke up the whole night, right? Ming Yao hesitated and said. Should we wait in the living room? Will we disturb him if we stay here? Tang Yin thought about it and nodded. It was true. Would they disturb Lin Yi when he was recovering? The three of them carefully left Lin Yi's room and closed the door. They went to the living room. Do you want something to drink? Ming Yao was the owner of the villa. Although her relationship with Tang Yin was a little awkward, this wasn't the time to be petty. Anything. Tang Yin wasn't in the mood for drinks. Ming Yao went to the fridge and took out a couple of bottles of drinks, putting them on the coffee table in the living room. She picked one up randomly and took a sip. She hadn't had a drop of water since morning, but she'd cried a couple of times. Her body was almost dehydrated. Yushu was the same. She didn't eat or drink anything. She picked up a bottle to replenish herself. Chapter 902. Chapter 001. Lin Yi's favorite girl. Would Lin Yi worry if she and Shu got sick? Tang Yi nodded and took a sip. The three of them just stared at each other in the living room, not knowing what to say. It was a little awkward. After a while, Yushu felt bored and wanted to find something to talk about. It wasn't that she wasn't worried about Lin Yi, but that Yushu was loyal to Shield Bro the most. She was sure that Shield Bro would be fine. She had faith in Lin Yi. Oh, let's discuss what kind of girl Shield Bro likes. Yushu looked at Ming Yao and Tang Yin and said, Shu, what's there to discuss? Ming Yao frowned. Tang Yin was sitting here, and she was Lin Yi's girlfriend. What kind of girl did Lin Yi like? Let's discuss. We don't have anything to do right now, right? Yushu blinked. I'll speak first. I think Shield Bro likes pretty, gentle girls with good family backgrounds. What do you guys think? How would I know? Ming Yao said helplessly as Yushu looked at her. Tang Yin, what do you think? Yushu then looked at Tang Yin. She was actually saying this to Tang Yin. After comparing with Tang Yin, Yushu realized that Yao Yao's family background was the only advantage she had, so she decided to use this to attack her opponent. Even though Yushu knew that Shield Bro didn't care about that. I'm not participating. You guys discuss it yourselves. Tang Yin's face darkened when Yushu pointed out her weakness. Oh, Shield Bro definitely doesn't like quiet and unsociable girls like Tang Yin. Yushu mumbled to herself. Impossible. Tang Yin panicked upon hearing Yushu's words. She glared at Yushu. Bullshit, Lin Yi likes people like me. Why else would he ask me to be his girlfriend? That's because he didn't have any other choice. There's no other school beauty in our school who likes Shield Bro other than you. That's why he chose you as his girlfriend. Yushu explained. Aren't you two the prettiest girls in school? Why didn't Lin Yi choose you? Tang Yin was a little angry after hearing Yushu's words. I did. Yao Yao is the main wife, and I'm the small wife. Yushu puffed up her chest confidently. Don't think that your boobs are the truth. Keep making things up. Tang Yin humphed. What? Are you jealous that my breasts are bigger than yours? Yushu said. What am I envious of? I'm not envious at all. It's so big, it's such a burden. I'll die of exhaustion if I walk too much. Tang Yin pouted. Alright Shu, stop fooling around. Ming Yao didn't want to become enemies with Tang Yin, but she knew that Shu was doing it for her own good, so she couldn't reprimand Shu. She could only tell Shu to stop and said to Tang Yin, Shu is just like that, don't take it to heart. Oh, it's okay, I know. Tang Yin was a little surprised after hearing Ming Yao's explanation, but she didn't want to argue with Yushu at this time. In the blink of an eye, it was already midnight. Pengzhan came back with 150 million transferred from the company. Although the company was one of the top 500 companies in the country, it was still a bit of a loss. Fortunately, there was still 50 million left. If it was properly arranged, it would be able to tide through the crisis for a while. However, some expansion plans had to be paused. Of course, this was all thanks to the 100 million Lin Yi borrowed from Lu Tianyi. If it wasn't for this 100 million, Pengzhan Industries would be in dire straits. How's Lin Yi? Pengzhan saw that there was light in the villa, So he opened the door with the key. But when he saw Tang Yin on the sofa, he paused for a second. This was the first time he saw Tang Yin. Tang Yin saw Pengzhan, the legendary chairman of Pengzhan Industries, the director of the school. She had only seen Pengzhan's speech when she first entered the school. At that time, Tang Yin was just one of the tens of thousands of students in the audience. But now, seeing Pengzhan at such a close distance, Tang Yin couldn't help but feel nervous. However, Tang Yin had met some big shots before: Fatty Lai, Guan Xuemin, and even Lu Tianyi. So even though she was nervous, she didn't feel awkward at all. She stood up politely and introduced herself. Hello, Uncle Chu. I'm Tang Yun, Lin Yi's girlfriend. I'm also a student of Songshan Songshan School. I've seen you at the opening ceremony before. Oh, you're Tang Yun? Nice to meet you. Pengzhan had heard Faubert talk about Tang Yun before, but he had never seen her before. Now that he saw Tang Yun, his eyes lit up. What a pretty girl. She wasn't any worse than his own daughter. No wonder Lin Yi liked her. Lin Yi is still unconscious. We didn't want to disturb him, so we waited in the living room. Ming Yao said. I see. Pengzhan sighed. What about Li Fu? How is he? Is he okay? Faubert's condition is the same as before. I don't dare to act recklessly if Lin Yi doesn't wake up. Ming Yao shook her head. Lin Yi and Faubert were unconscious. Two of the people closest to her in her life were unconscious. Ming Yao's mood was very low. Looks like we can only wait for Lin Yi to wake up. Pengzhan said. You guys didn't eat tonight? Are you hungry? Pengzhan remembered that Faubert was usually the one who sent food to his daughter. Even if Faubert didn't come, Lin Yi would cook. But now both Lin Yi and Faubert were bedridden. His daughter probably hadn't eaten? No. I don't want to eat. Ming Yao shook her head and looked at Tang Yun and Yushu. What about you guys? Tang Yun and Yushu weren't in the mood to eat. Besides, they drank some nutrition drinks earlier. Girls had small appetites, so they could just treat it as a diet. Have some instant noodles. Lin Yi is a doctor. He didn't ask you guys to send him to the hospital because he has his ways. Pengzhan comforted. I haven't eaten anything yet, so I'm a little hungry too. Okay, I'll go prepare. The miss got up and prepared instant noodles after hearing her father's words. She didn't really want to eat, but since her father wanted to eat, then everyone should eat. Chapter 903. Finally awake, Pengzhan was eating noodles with his daughter, but saw that his daughter, Yushu, and Tang Yun were all listless. He stood up and said his goodbyes. I'll head back then. You guys rest early too? Oh. Ming Yao nodded in response to Pengzhan's suggestion. Pengzhan shook his head and left the villa. Time passed by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 1 o'clock in the morning, but none of the three girls felt sleepy. Ming Yao, Yushu. Why don't you guys rest first? I'll wait for Lin Yi here. You guys don't have to stay with me. Tang Yun said as she watched Yushu yawning and widening her eyes. She felt bad for Yushu. She just needed to stick a stick in her eyes. We're not staying with you. We're just waiting for Lin Yi to wake up. After all, he got hurt because of us. Ming Yao said with a bitter smile. Yeah, we care more about Shield Bro than you do. Yushu nodded as well. I'm afraid that the three of us won't be able to do it if we keep going like this. Tang Yun explained helplessly. 1 day is fine, 2 days is fine, but we'll have to sleep for 3 days, right? What if Lin Yi wakes up and we can't find him? What would we do? If that's the case, you're right. Ming Yao nodded. If that's the case, then let's go with the rotation strategy. 1 sleeps, 2 at the same time. What do you think? I think so too. Tang Yin agreed. Yushu, you seem to be the most sleepy. Why don't you go rest first? I don't want to. You go first. I'm not sleepy. Yawn. Yushu yawned again. Yushu's body wasn't that strong, which was why she didn't last as long as Ming Yao when Pinliang locked her up in the cave. Shu, go to sleep. Listen to me. Ming Yao ordered. Oh, all right then. Yushu was indeed sleepy, and since they'd come to an agreement, there was no need for her to force herself to continue. She was resting now so that she could have more energy to wait for Shield Bro. Yushu yawned as she walked up the stairs. Weiwu seemed to have sensed the tension in the living room as well. He raised his head to look at Yushu before lying there unmoving. Over the past 3 days, No one knew how many times the three girls had rotated, and no one deliberately counted. Anyway, when one of them woke up, the other would go to sleep, and the cycle repeated. God knows how many boxes of instant noodles they had eaten, and the sky would turn dark again. There was finally some movement in Lin Yi's room. Tang Yin and Yushu were on duty at the moment, and they stood up hurriedly when they heard the commotion, rushing towards Lin Yi's room. However, neither of them dared to make any loud noises, and when they reached Lin Yi's room, they opened the door quietly despite their anxiety, and carefully looked towards the direction of Lin Yi's bed. Lin Yi's eyelashes moved, and his eyelids were very heavy, but he finally struggled to open his eyes. Phew! Lin Yi let out a long sigh of relief. He finally woke up. This was the most difficult time ever since he got injured. Before this, he could recover most of his strength in one night, and even improve a little. But this time, it took him 3 days and 3 nights just to recover from his injuries, and his strength didn't recover at all. After activating the art of dragon mastery, Lin Yi realized bitterly that the meridians in his body were still in a damaged state, and there wasn't a single bit of energy in his body that could be used. In other words, he was no different from a normal person now. Although he had already gotten over it in the Jade, Lin Yi was still a little disappointed when he returned to the real world. From a master to a normal person, it was just a matter of an instant. However, Lin Yi didn't regret it at all. In that situation, Lin Yi had no other choice. If he didn't use the energy bomb, he wouldn't have a chance of winning. This was because Ma Zhu was an anomaly among the physical masters. He practiced the Golden Bell Shield, and Lin Yi was 2 levels lower than him. A spiritual master at the peak of the early phase of Mystic Division could still fight against a physical master at the middle phase of Mystic Division, but it would be hard for him to fight against a physical master at the peak of the middle phase of Mystic Division, not to mention a monster like Ma Zhu. In a situation where there was no chance of winning, Lin Yi could only use all his strength and fight back. If he did as Elder Jiao said, and used 1/3 of his energy to repair his meridians, he wouldn't be able to damage Ma Zhu as much as he did now with the remaining 2/3 of his energy to create an energy bomb. Lin Yi wasn't sure if it would still be able to do that. 100% energy bomb wouldn't be able to kill Ma Zhu. It only blew off one of his arms. What could a 2/3 energy bomb do to him? If the attack didn't work, Lin Yi would have wasted 2/3 of the energy, and the remaining 1/3 would be useless. So if the situation could be repeated, Lin Yi would still choose to do the same. He was a qualified follower, right? Although Peng Zhan had hired him to accompany the miss in her studies, he wasn't a full-time bodyguard, but Lin Yi was a stubborn man. He didn't care about money, he cared about friendship. If he didn't have feelings for Miss and Shu, would Lin Yi risk his life for 30,000 yuan? That was impossible. Lin Yi, you are awake? Tang Yin ran over in surprise. Yushu didn't want to be outdone. She also ran over to ask for praise. I knew that Shield Bro would be fine, he is the best. Although Lin Yi was unconscious before, he knew what happened outside, but he couldn't force himself to wake up because his body was too weak. He only woke up after his injuries were completely healed. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for accompanying me for 3 days and 3 nights. Tang Yin and Yushu were stunned after hearing Lin Yi's words. How did Lin Yi know that they had been with him for 3 days and 3 nights? Although I was unconscious on the surface, I was awake the whole time. Lin Yi said, this time you guys can have a good rest, right? We are not tired. Tang Yin shook her head. Yeah, Shield Bro, you are hungry, right? What do you want to eat? I will make it for you. Yushu said. Chapter 904. Back to shelter, I see. All right, we'll go rest then. Tang Yin nodded after hearing Lin Yi's words. Meng Yao woke up in a hurry and went to take over Tang Yin and Yushu's shift. She didn't sleep for long, actually only a couple of hours. She was worried about Lin Yi's safety, so how could she sleep well? She stumbled down the stairs, but didn't see Yushu and Tang Yin on the sofa. She was startled, but she vaguely heard some voices in Lin Yi's room. Could it be? Meng Yao's sleepiness disappeared instantly as she rushed to Lin Yi's room. She saw Lin Yi smiling as he laid on the bed, talking to Tang Yin and Shu. Meng Yao's heart relaxed instantly. She was so happy that Lin Yi was finally awake. Yao Yao, you should sleep too. I can tell that you didn't sleep well just by looking at your messy hair. It was Lin Yi's first time seeing such a messy miss. Her hair was messy, and she didn't have any image at all. Mingyao blushed at Lin Yi's words. She remembered that she just woke up, and her hair was messy. Yushu and Tang Yin had been awake for a long time, and they'd already washed their faces and combed their hair. She was the only one who rushed over. Mingyao's face showed a hint of shyness, a little different from her usual cold miss image. But the shyness disappeared in a flash, and she returned to her usual calm self. Tang Yin was here, and she had to control her emotions. It's good that you're awake. Do you still need to rest? Yeah, I need to rest for a while. You guys go rest too, Lin Yi said. The three girls all had their own thoughts. Mingyao wanted to say thank you words, Yushu wanted to ask what Shield Bro's killer move was, and Tang Yin wanted to ask if there was anything Lin Yi needed her to do. She wanted to stay by Lin Yi's side and take care of him. However, the three of them could not say anything and could only leave the room together. Phew. Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. It wasn't that he didn't want to see the three women, nor did he really want to rest. On the one hand, he wanted the three women to rest, but the most important thing was that Lin Yi hadn't thought about what to say to them. Regarding the present and the future, Lin Yi did not know where to go. Lin Yi, who had lost his strength, could be found by enemies at any time. He could lose his life at any time, and he could also bring trouble and danger to the eldest miss. Without strength, it would be difficult for him to move an inch. Fortunately, his enemies did not know of his current situation. Otherwise, they would have come knocking on his door. Thinking of this, Lin Yi could not help but smile bitterly. He wanted to take out his phone to call the old man at home and ask him if there was any way, but when his hand reached into his pocket, he was shocked to find that his phone had been destroyed by his own energy bomb. Tang Yin, Mingyao, and Yushu were really tired. Everyone was thinking about Lin Yi, and they didn't sleep well for the past 3 days and 3 nights. So, when they came out of Lin Yi's room and felt relieved, they immediately felt sleepy. Tang Yin was also resting in the bedroom above Mingyao and Yushu. The miss didn't mind Tang Yin, and let her sleep on her and Yushu's bed. The miss didn't know why she suddenly didn't reject Tang Yin so much. She accepted Lin Yi. Did that mean that she also accepted his woman? In short, Mingyao didn't hate Tang Yin that much now. Was it a good thing or a bad thing? But Tang Yin was sleeping in the bedroom upstairs. Now that the three of them were going to sleep, how could they sleep on the same bed? Tang Yin also realized that it was inappropriate for the three of them to sleep together, so she took the initiative. Why don't I sleep on the sofa downstairs? Mingyao was a little embarrassed after hearing Tang Yin's words. You are a guest, how can you sleep on the sofa? If you want to sleep, it should be Shu. Ah. Why me? Yushu asked innocently. Huh. Tang Yin knew that Mingyao was being polite. How could she let Yushu sleep on the sofa? So she smiled. Is there a guest room here? Maybe I can sleep in the guest room? Yes, it's just upstairs beside the master bedroom. I'll clean it up for you. Mingyao suddenly remembered that there was a guest room in the house. Yushu wanted to say that it was Shield Bro's room upstairs, but Mingyao was quick to say that it was a guest room and needed to be cleaned up. It was obvious that it hadn't been used for a long time. Yushu couldn't help but feel dejected. Her plan to trick Tang Yin had failed. Lin Yi waited for the three girls to go upstairs. After a while, he came out of the room and came to the living room. General Wei Wu looked at Lin Yi curiously. It seemed to have sensed the change in Lin Yi's strength, but it couldn't speak the human language. It barked twice, but Lin Yi ignored it. It could only continue lying on the floor. Lin Yi used the landline phone in the villa and called Old Lin. Old Lin was in the toilet when he picked up the phone. He almost dropped the phone into the manure pit when it rang. What are you doing? Can't you call later? You're not going to the toilet again, are you? Lin Yi could guess what Old Lin was doing from his tone. Old Lin hemphed. What's the matter? Old man, I dropped a level. I'm a normal person now. Lin Yi didn't waste any time and directly told him about the trouble he was in. A normal person? What happened? Old Lin was startled. He didn't have the time to scold Lin Yi for calling at the wrong time, so he quickly asked. My meridians are all damaged, I can't train my chi. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and told Old Lin everything that happened. So you're saying that your meridians were destroyed by yourself? Old Lin's tone changed after hearing Lin Yi's story. Yes. Lin Yi was helpless. Old man, you're a miracle doctor. Do you have a solution? No. Old man Lin said straightforwardly. What's wrong with you? Aren't you being too careless? Forget it. According to what you said, it's not your fault. Hurry up and pack your bags and come back. Then focus on training your physical kung fu. I don't think you can stay in Songshan anymore. You'll only die if you stay there.